Chapter 1526. The bus wasn't moving fast, and there were still people boarding along the way. Ning Shu grabbed his bag. There was only a ginseng in the bag that was worth some money, and the bag was filled with clothes. As the bus moved, he felt that the people boarding the bus were different. The color of their clothes became brighter and brighter. Ning Shu was a country bumpkin. The style of her clothes was very old-fashioned, and she looked rustic from head to toe. It was obvious that she came from the countryside. The bus would stop at a rest stop to allow the passengers to relieve themselves and have some food. Ning Shu ordered a vegetarian dish and a bowl of white rice from the restaurant. However, it was so expensive that Ning Shu was speechless. Because of the geographical advantage, the food was very expensive. It was up to you to eat or not. When Ning Shu was eating, he felt that someone was sizing him up. Ning Shu opened his bag and put the ginseng in his pocket. She was probably being targeted by a thief. Ning Shu sneered in her heart. Was she going to put on a show of catching a thief later? Ning Shu moved his neck. The gaze was sizing him up. Ning Shu looked in the direction of the gaze. He saw a woman in her 40s. The woman was quite good-looking. When she met Ning Shu's gaze, she didn't avoid it. Instead, she smiled at Ning Shu. The woman took her bag and walked in front of Ning Shu. She sat down in the chair opposite Ning Shu. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows. They didn't know each other. What was she doing? Ning Shu suspected that this woman was a human trafficker. She wanted to kidnap her and sell her to an old bachelor in the mountains. Ning Shu, ha ha ha. My heart is so dark. Ning Shu looked at the woman like a country bumpkin and asked, Auntie, what's the matter? When the woman heard Ning Shu call her auntie, the corner of her mouth twitched and her expression changed. No woman wanted to hear the word old. However, the woman endured it in the end. She smiled and flipped her hair. A fragrance wafted from her body. Ning Shu leaned back. You can call me Sister Zhou. I run an agency. You must be a girl who just started working. An agency? Labor agency? Ning Shu shyly and obediently called out, Sister Zhou. With a smile on her face, Sister Zhou ordered a few more meat dishes for Ning Shu. You know what an agency is, right? Ning Shu looked at the dishes on the table and didn't stand on ceremony. He picked up his chopsticks and started eating. It would be a waste not to eat. One who is unaccountably solicitous is hiding evil intentions. Moreover, Ning Shu was not afraid of what was in the dish. Her body could take it. When Sister Zhou saw that Ning Shu had eaten several plates of food, her eyes flashed with contempt. Ning Shu put down his chopsticks and said, Thank you for your hospitality. I'm leaving. Ning Shu carried his bag and walked out of the restaurant. The woman called Sister Zhou was stunned for a moment and quickly chased after Ning Shu. She actually met a rash person. Her food was so delicious. Little girl, don't go yet. Didn't I tell you that I'm an agency? I think it's suitable for you to go to our agency. Ning Shu stopped and asked with a look of ignorance and curiosity, What kind of agency are you? Sister Zhou said mysteriously, I guarantee that you will make a lot of money. Ning Shu was surprised and sneered in his heart. There was no such thing as a free lunch in the world. Ning Shu quickly asked, What kind of work is it? I'll tell you this on the way. I'll go with you. Sister Zhou said and got into the car with Ning Shu. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows. She actually wants to go with me. Is she going to kidnap me? Ning Shu, I'm a country bumpkin. I'm easy to fool. Sister Zhou sat beside Ning Shu and talked to Ning Shu from time to time. She asked about Ning Shu's family situation and how old he was now. Ning Shu just said that he was 18 years old this year. The village was too poor, so he had to go to the big city to work. Sister Zhou's face flashed a satisfied look. Although he didn't look good, he had been doing farm work since he was young. His body was very strong. It didn't matter whether he was beautiful or not. The main thing was that his body was strong. Sister Zhou and Ning Shu talked a lot. She gave all the things in her branded bag to Ning Shu to eat. She even smiled and asked Ning Shu, "Guess how much my bag cost?" Ning Shu saw that the bag was made of real leather. The workmanship was quite exquisite. It should be a branded bag. But as a country bumpkin who had never seen the world, Ning Shu should know nothing about these things. "I don't know. 30,000. Wow, so much money." Ning Shu praised exaggeratedly. "Then do you know how much the ring on my hand costs?" "I don't know." "Do you know what brand my shoes are?" "I don't know." "Then do you know what brand the clothes I'm wearing are?" "I don't know." She didn't know anything. "Ning Shu, you're here to show off your wealth, right?" Sister Zhou saw Ning Shu's expression and was quite satisfied. "My clothes are worth more than 50,000. The necklaces, earrings, and small accessories are all branded goods." "Oh, so much money." Her heart was black. Did she think that just because she wore good clothes, she was wearing human skin? "Actually, you can afford these things," Sister Zhou said mysteriously. Finally, they were going to talk about the main topic. Listening to this woman flaunting her wealth, Ning Shu was numb. Ning Shu shook his head and said, "How can I afford such good things? I don't have money. I never knew that a piece of clothing cost thousands." "Of course you can. Don't worry about the job I introduced to you. The main thing is that the agency needs talents like you. Don't talk about branded goods, you can even buy a house in the city." Ning Shu, lie, what job is it?" Ning Shu asked. "Surrogacy." Sister Zhou said softly. "What?" Ning Shu was speechless and shocked. Surrogacy was not legal. "You know what surrogacy is, right?" Sister Zhou asked Ning Shu. "Let me tell you, this is something that can only be done with connections." "Ning Shu, are you bullying me for being a country bumpkin?" Ning Shu was honest. His face was black and red. "Is it giving birth?" "Yes, it is giving birth." Sister Zhou said softly. "This is not good. My parents will kill me if they know. I am a girl, and my parents say that I must respect myself." Ning Shu shook his head and said. "Why are you so stubborn? This is such a good thing, and you want to reject it. Do you think that everyone is qualified to be a surrogate mother? Our agency only takes orders from rich people and foreigners. We only need to borrow your belly. You don't have to do anything. Someone will take good care of you. There will be nutrition fees and surrogacy fees. You don't have to do anything and you can earn money. When the child is born, the parents will take the child away. You can get tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of surrogacy fees." Sister Zhou smiled at Ning Shu. Chapter 1527. Ning Shu thought she was a human trafficker. She didn't expect that she was a surrogacy agency. She probably wanted to trick her into being a surrogate mother. Without a doubt, this kind of surrogacy agency was illegal. Think about it. If you don't agree, I can only find someone else. If you are a surrogate mother for a rich man, you can live a good life with a little money. Sister Zhou took a step back in order to advance. She didn't force Ning Shu to go to the surrogacy agency anymore. Instead, she acted like she didn't care if Ning Shu went or not. She could scare the young girls who had just entered society, but it was useless to Ning Shu. Ning Shu didn't look at Sister Zhou. Now Sister Zhou was like a big bad wolf wagging its tail. There was no such thing as a free lunch in the world. If you wanted to take advantage of her, you would suffer a big loss. Since the birth of human beings, they had always used precious things as currency. It had always been an equivalent exchange. Maybe surrogacy was valuable, but she didn't know what the channels were. She wasn't sure if the money would end up in her hands. Besides, surrogacy was illegal in the first place. I will get off at the next stop. If you think about it, you can go with me. If you don't, you can take it, Sister Zhou said to Ning Shu. Ning Shu was a little hesitant. Finally, she said, well, I will do this job. I need to earn money to support my family. Where is the next stop? Ning Shu asked confusedly, are we in the provincial capital? Yes. Ning Shu said to Sister Zhou, can I use your mobile phone? What do you need a mobile phone for? Sister Zhou looked at Ning Shu, do you know how to use a mobile phone? Ning Shu looked like a bumpkin. He knew how to use a mobile phone. Ning Shu smiled and said, someone in my village has a mobile phone. I borrow it occasionally, so I know how to use it. I called my family and told them I found a job. Ning Shu used the map to find the nearest police station, checked the phone number, and called. When the call was connected, Ning Shu said in a cheerful voice, Mom, I found a job. It was recommended by someone I met at the station. Oh, you're asking about my job? Actually, it's a surrogate pregnancy. No, I'm not the one giving birth. It's the rich people who don't want to have children and are borrowing my belly. Don't worry, there won't be any problems. Oh, I'm getting off now. I'm hanging up. I'm about to enter the city now. I'm about to alight. Don't worry, I'll definitely work hard to earn money. I heard that surrogacy can earn tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. Okay, I'm hanging up. I'm using the phone of the big sister next to me. She's the one who introduced me to this job. Ning Shu chattered on. Finally, he hung up the phone and passed it to Sister Zhou. Thank you. Sister Zhou was a little surprised and asked, your parents agreed to this? Actually, in my hometown, boys are more important than girls. As long as I can earn money, my parents won't say anything. Ning Shu asked shyly, can I really earn so much money? Big Sister Zhou looked at Ning Shu's current appearance. She was a money grubber and greedy person. She smiled and said, of course you can make so much money. Ning Shu heaved a sigh of relief. That's good. She didn't know if the other party understood what she was saying when she called the police. They should be able to understand. Surrogacy was still illegal. It was unimaginable that surrogacy would be legal one day. You might be dragged to be a surrogate when you walk on the streets. Especially those black-hearted agencies. The bus was driving on the highway. Ning Shu pestered Sister Zhou to ask a lot of questions about agencies. She was like a young lady who wanted to familiarize herself with her job. She was a little uneasy, but she was also looking forward to it. Ning Shu asked how many girls were working as surrogate mothers and how much money they could earn after surrogacy. However, he was worried that giving birth would be very painful. In short, he was very long-winded. Previously, Sister Zhou had answered Ning Shu. However, after Ning Shu asked too many questions, she became a little impatient. She told him that he would be there when they arrived. Anyway, he ate well and slept well. His life was very good. Ning Shu ate Sister Zhou's snacks. Dried beef, potato chips, and the like. He chewed them with a kacha sound. Occasionally, some crumbs would fall on Sister Zhou. She quickly patted the crumbs off her body. Everything on her was good. Sister Zhou glanced at Ning Shu, who was eating and looking around. She couldn't help but twitch the corner of her mouth in disdain. He was indeed a bumpkin from the countryside. He had no manners at all. If it wasn't for the sake of money, she wouldn't have bothered with him. Ning Shu burped and patted his stomach. He said with satisfaction, I'm so full. Sister Zhou, your food is so delicious. Sister Zhou suppressed the disgust in her heart and said with a smile, there's more. Do you want to eat? Ning Shu waved his hand. I'm full now. Can you give me the snacks? I'll eat them later. Sister Zhou, she had never seen such a shameless person. Not only did he eat, but he also wanted to put it in his pocket. No wonder he agreed to be a surrogate. He was really crazy about money. His parents were also strange. Sister Zhou forced a smile and took out a bag of things. Ning Shu quickly took the bag and stuffed the plastic bag into his bag. Sister Zhou, if he ate her food, he would have to spit it out. I'll sleep for a while. I'll be sleepy after eating. Wake me up when we're at the station. Ning Shu said and closed his eyes. Although Ning Shu closed his eyes, he used his mental strength to observe the situation on the bus. Sister Zhou's expression was ugly. Since Ning Shu closed his eyes, she couldn't be bothered to pretend. Her face flashed with a cold smile. Hey, wake up. We're at the station. Sister Zhou pushed Ning Shu. Ning Shu sleepily opened his eyes and rubbed his eyes. We're here so soon. Let's get off. Ning Shu carried his bag and followed behind Sister Zhou. After getting off the bus, he saw people coming and going at the station. He didn't know if the police had arrived. Ning Shu carried a big bag in one hand and grabbed Sister Zhou's clothes with the other. He said in an exaggerated voice, "Wow, Sister Zhou, this is the city. There are so many people." Ning Shu's voice attracted the attention of many people. In addition, Ning Shu was carrying a rustic bag and wearing rustic clothes. It attracted many people's sneers. Sister Zhou was speechless. She wished she didn't know such an embarrassing person. A few people came over to Ning Shu. Ning Shu grabbed Sister Zhou's clothes tightly. Sister Zhou, you can't leave me. There are so many people. I'm afraid I'll get lost. Don't worry. Sister Zhou, are we going to the place of work now? When can you arrange for me to be a surrogate? On the way, Sister Zhou had already seen Ning Shu's long-winded mouth. She really wanted to sew his mouth. If she endured it now, he would be punished in the future. Sister Zhou could only endure and said, I have to check your body first. If your body is qualified and there is no disease, you can be a surrogate. Chapter 1528. Ning Shu looked at the people coming towards them. They were probably plainclothes police officers. They ran over and detained Ning Shu and Sister Zhou. Sister Zhou was handcuffed and she looked extremely panicked. What are you doing? This is a robbery. Shut up. The police are doing their job. Ning Shu and Sister Zhou were taken into the car and driven to the police station. Ning Shu felt that she was very fated with the police station in this world. She was always invited for tea and the police would serve her tea. She had to thank the police for serving tea. Sister Zhou's face was pale. She didn't understand how she was exposed. She had abducted and sold many women, but she had never failed. When they arrived at the police station, the police brought Ning Shu to another interrogation room. You called the police. Ning Shu nodded. It's me. This is my identification card. I went out to work and met Sister Zhou on the way. Ning Shu asked, do I get a reward for doing this? Police, Ning Shu was treated quite well. Sister Zhou searched her from head to toe and ensured that she didn't leave any communication devices behind. Under the police's interrogation, Sister Zhou told them about the illegal surrogacy agency. The police followed the clues and found the place and rescued many women. However, some of these women were still pregnant. It was obvious that they had already started surrogacy. It was different from the beautiful blueprint that Sister Zhou had described to Ning Shu. These women were all tricked. Some were even snatched. When you walked in a remote area at night, your mouth would be covered and you would bring bread. These women had no freedom. They were like hens that laid eggs. They were surrogate mothers and earned money for the black-hearted agency. Other than eating to ensure that the fetus could grow in their wombs, they didn't get any money. There was no freedom. They also had to ensure that the fetus in their wombs was healthy. Because the clients didn't want an unhealthy fetus. At this time, they had to abort the defective fetus in their wombs. In short, it was like raising chickens for these women to give birth to babies. Surrogacy was worth tens of thousands of yuan. These women didn't get a single cent. Moreover, the money earned was much more than selling the women to the mountains. The children were valuable. Women had the right to use their own bodies. However, this wasn't a reason for those people to exploit them. The suspects were caught, but the pregnant women made the police feel numb. However, there was a woman who proposed to abort the child in her belly. She almost knelt on the ground and cried herself hoarse. None of this had anything to do with Ning Shu. He just received a token reward from the police station. Ning Shu got into the car. She did not plan to stay in this city. She wanted to go somewhere else. Ning Shu sat in the car. This time, she wouldn't meet someone like Sister Zhou again, right? If they were to meet again, they would come again. With Ning Shu's martial prowess, he was not afraid at all. It would be best to do it again and wipe them all out. The sun shone brightly, but there were also dark corners where the light could not reach. In these corners, evil thrived. There was not only white in the world, but also black and gray. It wasn't even pure white. The human heart was complicated. One had to have the ability to protect oneself, to have the skills to live in peace, and to survive in this dangerous world. At the very least, such a world was relatively perfect. Ning Shu sat on the bus for a few days and arrived at another bustling city. Ning Shu got off the bus and found a small hotel to stay in. She had to plan her future work. Ning Shu counted her skills. She knew programming, martial arts, embroidery, cooking. She knew quite a lot of things. But what should she do? Ning Shu planned to wander around the internet cafe and look for a job online. Ning Shu saw a game company looking for programming. Ning Shu immediately called her to apply. In the end, the other party had a university degree in computer science. I have a junior high school diploma. Do you want it? Ning Shu said that her programming skills were not weak, but the other party hung up. Sometimes, a diploma did not mean anything, but it was a stepping stone. Ning Shu sighed and continued browsing the web. Ning Shu did not believe that she could not find a suitable job. She saw a taekwondo dojo looking for a coach. Ning Shu felt that she could give it a try. She could go for an interview. Ning Shu did not believe that taekwondo required a university degree. She despaired of this world where everyone had to obtain a certificate. Ning Shu also saw a gun club looking for a coach. Guns were prohibited, but in this kind of club, only the rich played. Ning Shu felt that her shooting skills were not bad. Even if she could not hit the target, she still had her mental strength. However, they wanted to hire retired special forces. Hee. Ning Shu bought a slightly better set of clothes so that they wouldn't look so dusty. She also went to trim her hair a little to make it look fresher and neater. Then, Ning Shu began to go to the taekwondo dojo for an interview. Ning Shu had already thought about it. If she could not pass the interview, she would go to the streets to sell egg pancakes. She could survive. If that did not work, she would roast sweet potatoes. Ning Shu arrived at the taekwondo dojo. The interviewee was surprised to see Ning Shu and asked Ning Shu for a taekwondo certificate. This certificate was issued by the Taekwondo Association. Everything was a black belt. Ning Shu was speechless. She was in despair. What did not require a certificate? Ning Shu said, I don't have a certificate, but I am a black belt. Really? If you don't believe me, we can fight. The interviewer was speechless. This interviewer was in his 30s. He probably knew some kung fu. His eyes were sharp and his body was strong. You can test my martial arts. It is beyond your imagination. I will get a certificate. Ning Shu stretched out her hand. You only need 1 minute to test me. The interviewer took off his jacket. He was wearing a taekwondo uniform with a black belt around his waist. This represented his taekwondo level. Ning Shu struck a taekwondo pose. After 2 rounds, she easily gave the interviewer a shoulder throw. The interviewer got up. Not bad. But you need to get your certificate. Our classes are usually on Sundays. You only need to come on Saturdays and Sundays. Ning Shu was happy. This meant that she was hired. Also, she only had 2 working days a week. She could do a lot of things during the rest of the time. For example, she could learn something or get a certificate. The person who interviewed Ning Shu was the boss of this taekwondo dojo. The main business scope was to teach people who wanted to learn taekwondo. Most of the people who wanted to learn taekwondo were children and women. There were also men who wanted to learn taekwondo. He wanted to find a female coach to teach white-collar workers, high school students, and college students. He had worked hard to run this taekwondo dojo. He did not want any rumors of a coach molesting a female student to ruin his reputation. When Ning Shu saw the recruitment notice for a female coach, she felt that she had a higher chance of being hired. Now, she had at least 1 job. The boss brought Ning Shu to get a certificate and she got a black belt. Yes, she could make a living with martial arts. Chapter 1529. Ning Shu had originally thought that this job would be a very easy one. However, on the first day of work, Ning Shu saw children who were as tall as her belly button. There were boys and girls. They were wearing taekwondo uniforms and were chattering noisily. Their movements were not standard at all and they were not serious at all. They even ran around the house, chasing each other. No matter what she said, they would ignore her. She repeatedly told them, but they did not seem to care. It was extremely noisy. Ning Shu was having a headache. Ning Shu stomped her feet on the ground and shouted, "Quiet down." The situation was under control. Everyone looked at Ning Shu in a daze. No matter what you do, persistence and perseverance are the most important. You came to learn taekwondo not only for a healthy and strong physique, but also to train your will to be as strong as steel. Who's going to make a fuss? Ning Shu broke the thick board with her palm. The boss was shocked by Ning Shu and quickly walked over. Don't be too powerful. If so many parents complain about us, how can I continue to operate this taekwondo dojo? Ning Shu. Wah. A little girl burst into tears. As soon as she cried, the others also cried. Mommy, she's so fierce. Ning Shu suddenly felt that she was not suitable for this job. She had to find a new job. The parents of these children were probably rich and sent these little radishes to learn this. She could not even be more strict. Practicing martial arts was to strengthen the body and the heart. Ning Shu stomped her feet again. Anyway, she had nothing to lose. What are you crying for? Press your legs. Hurry up. Ning Shu shouted. Some of the children were so scared that they burped and started to press their legs while sobbing. Ning Shu rolled her eyes. After class, the parents who came to pick up their children saw the crying children and immediately went to find trouble with Ning Shu. They even asked Ning Shu to apologize. Ning Shu, fearless, she was not a kindergarten teacher. She had to be gentle and considerate to these children. The boss apologized to the parents, and they left unsatisfied. The boss sighed. Ning Shu asked, "Then should I come tomorrow?" The boss nodded. Of course. Ning Shu was a little surprised. Her work was so bad, but she was still allowed to go to work. Boss, you're a good man. Tomorrow is the weekend. There will be a lot of white-collar women coming back. Go and teach them some moves to protect themselves. You don't have to be too strict with those children. It's a thankless task. You've seen the attitude of those parents. Those kids just need to be able to perform 2 beautiful moves, the boss said. Ning Shu, profiteer, however, he had no choice. He was here to learn Taekwondo, but he didn't want to suffer at all. I'll teach the kids, the boss said. Ning Shu nodded. Thank you. I will work hard. The next day, Ning Shu taught the white-collar workers and the slightly older children. She felt much better. At least they could understand what she was saying. Also, these white-collar women all paid money to learn. If they didn't learn seriously, they would be letting down the money they worked so hard to earn. Ning Shu taught these white-collar women fighting skills. She taught them to hit with 1 hit and then have a chance to escape. She couldn't count on men to be self-aware. She could only strengthen herself. Ning Shu looked at the boss among a bunch of children. She was very tired of taking care of them. Ning Shu suspected that this was a nursery. Those parents wanted to entrust their children here. Ning Shu coughed with a cold face. When the children saw Ning Shu, they immediately looked away. Sometimes, when Ning Shu went to the toilet, she would hear these children call her a tigress. Ning Shu couldn't help but laugh. She wouldn't argue with these children. She was afraid that they would only talk behind people's backs. However, Ning Shu got along well with the students under her. In the adult world, the strong were worthy of respect. Ning Shu's martial arts were not weak, and the things she taught them were practical. After every training, Ning Shu would tell them how to massage and what acupuncture points to massage to relieve muscle tension. The girls who came here to learn Taekwondo all wanted to make themselves stronger and have some fighting power. If they encountered danger, they would have the ability to resist. It was better to rely on oneself than on others. Ning Shu taught very seriously. Not only could she earn money, but she could also help others. Ning Shu's daily salary was not small. If a student wanted to sign up under her, she would get a commission. That was to say, if someone signed up to learn Taekwondo, Ning Shu would get a commission. When she wasn't at work, Ning Shu had to distribute flyers on the street. Maybe she would be lucky and get someone. Sometimes, Ning Shu would just take a few pieces of wood that were as thick as a finger and show off her skills when necessary. I'm someone who knows real martial arts. Just go and distribute flyers. You don't have to do this. It's like a street performer. The boss was speechless. Ning Shu was speechless. Fortunately, I didn't perform breaking a rock on my chest, Ning Shu said. It's useless to distribute flyers. Even the paper is too hard to wipe my butt. Ning Shu would carry a wooden board to distribute flyers every time. When someone questioned her, she would stack a few wooden boards and chop them with her hand. This job was fixed. Ning Shu found a small rented house. Although it was small, it was enough for one person to live in. Ning Shu took out the ginseng from her bag. The ginseng was in good condition. If it was in ancient times, it could be sold for 100 taels of silver. But in modern times, it was unknown. Ning Shu took the ginseng to the famous medicine hall to sell it. The person looked at it and didn't want it at all. He said directly, "We have a regular supply channel. We don't accept such scattered things. Moreover, we don't know if this is planted or wild. If I planted it, why would I bring it here?" Ning Shu said speechlessly. Medicinal herbs like this were in high demand in ancient times. The medicinal effects of planted and wild herbs are the same. We can't tell. We don't accept scattered ones. Ning Shu sighed in her heart and wrapped the ginseng. If they didn't accept it, she would just keep it. One day, she would stew it into soup. In modern society, there were more and more fake things. Her things were not easy to sell. Besides, the social classes in modern society had been solidified. The social resources had been allocated. There were fewer ways for people to climb up. Sometimes, when you had something in your hands, people didn't want it because they had partners. Everything required a certificate. They paid more attention to the education level. Ning Shu came out of the medicine hall and smelled the ginseng. If they didn't want such a good thing, she would keep it for herself. Ning Shu didn't have much time to work. She planned to sign up for a chef's pastry class. After she left, her body had been strengthened by her peerless martial arts. Part of her strength would be left. But she didn't have the ability to fly. Unless the client continued to cultivate peerless martial arts, but it was difficult to cultivate to Ning Shu's level. Chapter 1530. Ning Shu originally wanted to take a computer science course and become a programmer in the future. However, the client was only a junior high school graduate after all. Usually, when he came into contact with computers, he had only seen them on TV. Maybe it was too strenuous for her. She might as well learn how to make pastries. Ning Shu had some cooking skills. He believed that it wouldn't be difficult for Wang Ying, who had washed and cooked since she was young. At least he had to get a certificate. Without a certificate, it would be difficult to do anything. However, there were fake certificates. Instead of a half-fake one, he might as well spend some money to learn. As long as he had a skill, he could survive. As long as he could do it to the extreme, he would be successful. After Ning Shu received his salary, he went to a pastry school and signed up to learn how to make pastries. Ning Shu chose a relatively famous school. It was famous, but the tuition was a little expensive. Ning Shu took a deep breath and gritted his teeth as he paid the tuition fee. Ning Shu signed up for a one-year intensive class. There were 3 months of accelerated classes. Ning Shu didn't sign up. Since he wanted to learn, he would learn for a longer time. It was never wrong to learn more. Then Ning Shu dealt with flour and cream every day. Ning Shu's body always had an inexhaustible smell of wheat and roasted vegetables. Ning Shu would bake his own bread at home or make some pastries for the students. The students had no resistance to sweets, and their attitude towards Ning Shu was much better. Some of Ning Shu's students said that Ning Shu could be a cake maker and open a bakery. Ning Shu smiled. Maybe he could open a bakery. However, it wasn't easy to set up a business in this city. It was also a goal to strive for. Ning Shu's students had increased, but the increase wasn't much. They were all introduced by his students. The more the merrier. Ning Shu didn't refuse. The more students there were, the lower the chances of her being fired. After all, everyone was targeting her. Quest complete. Leave the quest world. 2333's voice rang out in Ning Shu's mind. After that, Ning Shu felt dizzy. When Ning Shu returned to the system space, he really wanted to vomit. It was as if his soul was being squeezed. Ning Shu looked at his own soul. It was much thinner than before. If it was jelly before, it was milk now. Her soul directly passed through the object, and she couldn't even take it. It was a huge loss. The second mission really made her heart ache. Congratulations on completing the Super Mission Taker's trial mission. Please check your rewards. Mission 1, fulfill Yi Xiaodong's wish. Mission completion rate, 90%. You will receive a reward card, 2 attribute points, and 2000 faith power. Yi Xiaotong became an embroidery master and saved up money for her brother to hold an art exhibition. Mission 2, fulfill Kong Lin's wish and cancel the contract. Mission completion rate, 100. You will be rewarded with 2 contribution points and 3 attribute points. From then on, Kong Lin flew freely in the sky. No one could control her anymore, including the heavenly Tao. Because Kong Lin was already a dead person. Mission 3, complete Wang Ying's counterattack. Mission completion rate, 100. You will receive a reward card, 5 attribute points, and Wang Ying's blessing. You will receive the Brave Heart aura. This aura has a certain effect on strength when in danger. Wang Ying has a happy family, an understanding husband, and a bakery business. Overall evaluation, pays more attention to the client's future development. Overall score, 90. Reward, enter the law space to understand the law. Ning Shu, yay, finally, the mission was completed. To be able to enter the law space, what was the loss of soul power? Ning Shu sat on the ground and began to absorb the pure soul power. Probably because there were 3 clients this time, the soul power was slightly more. Ning Shu felt that the feeling of his soul being exhausted dissipated a lot. Ning Shu opened his attribute panel. Name, Ning Shu. Age, 27. Level, Super Mission Client Reward Card, 100,125, 10 million for a reward card. Soul Value, 0/2 Health Value, 0 to 1 Wisdom, 0 to 1 Charm, 0 to 1 Mental Power, 0 to 1 Martial Power, 0/2 Aptitude, 0/2 Faith, 400, 0020000 Merit, 15260 Law Understanding, None Skills, 5th Ring Shooting Technique, Intermediate Close Combat Technique, Exceptional Martial Arts Proficiency, Intermediate Poison Technique, Beginner Business Management Knowledge, Beginner Code Programming, Beginner Lawyer Skill, Sage Ghost Catching Skill, Beginner Cooking Skill, Beginner Embroidery Skill. Honorary Titles, Goddess of War, Selfless Ancestor Items, Calm Aura, Calming Pill, Faith Aura, Amulet 4, Upgraded Amulet 2. Aura, Mother of the World, Queen's Blessing, Model Worker, Chen Shi's Blessing, Leader Aura, Grass Blessing, Lifelong Friend, Miao Miao's Blessing. Life-Saving Hand, Zhu Sun Yang's Blessing, Founding Woman, Chen Ermiai's Blessing, Beauty in Law, Chen Ning's Blessing, Bane of the Blood Clan, Jasmine's Blessing, Transcending Race Communication, by San Yang's Blessing, Brave Heart, Wang Ying's Blessing. Ning Shu felt that his attribute points had become less. In the past, he would have dozens of attribute points, but now he only had a few points. When he had less attribute points, he only had 1 point. It was too fucking shabby. 2333 said, now 1 attribute point is equivalent to 10 points in the past. It's not a small amount. It's easier to count with less attribute points. It's also simpler. 2333 asked, do you want to go to the law space now? Ning Shu nodded. Quickly. I'll open up a passage first, and explain the virtual space to you. Ning Shu sat up straight and perked up her ears to listen to 2333. The virtual space is filled with different kinds of laws. These laws are drawn from the Law Sea. Basically, the planes born from the Law Sea all have these laws. They are mostly the same and can be used in any plane. However, it depends on the plane's suppression. Ning Shu's face darkened as he listened to 2333's words seriously. He thought to himself, who made this law space? To be able to make such a space is really awesome. The virtual space is filled with violent laws, and the laws in each area are different. There are many laws: metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. There are many laws, such as the law of wind, the law of ice, the law of water, and the top-notch law of time and space. There is a city in each law area. The purpose of these cities is to protect the mission takers. If you want to understand the anti-law, you have to leave the city. The further you are from the city, the more violent the laws are. With your current soul state, I'm afraid that you will be torn apart and can only stay in the city. 2333 said. The passage is fixed. Which law city do you want to go to first? 2333 asked. Ning Shu thought, she can't understand anything now, so it doesn't matter. Let's go to the time city. Ning Shu had a strange obsession with time. This was because Ning Shu had seen the power of the law of time. It was too heaven-defying, and almost no one could escape from time. Chapter 1531. There was another reason why Ning Shu wanted to learn the law of time. He wanted to go back and see his parents. He didn't know how time flowed in his hometown. "Please stand at the entrance of the passage," 2333 said. "Wait." Ning Shu opened the chat system and sent a message to Mei Ziqing. Mei Ziqing was someone familiar with the law space. With her around, he could learn more about the law space. "Ning Shu, are you there? I'm going to the law space now." Ding dong. Mei Ziqing replied, "Which city are you in?" "Time City." "Then we'll see you later." Ning Shu closed the chat system and stood at the passage to the law space. This time, the teleportation took a long time. During the process, Ning Shu felt dizzy. If he had a stomach, he would have vomited by now. When his feet touched the ground, Ning Shu felt that his soul was about to scatter. His soul power. Ning Shu looked around. The style of the Time City was still ancient. Beneath Ning Shu's feet was a bluestone slab. As Ning Shu's feet stepped on the bluestone slab, she could faintly feel some kind of power surging on the bluestone slab. "There's very little law of time on the stone floor. It's a bit strenuous for you," 2333 said. 2333, over here. Mei Ziqing waved to Ning Shu. Hearing Mei Ziqing call him 2333, Ning Shu was stunned. Then he remembered that Mei Ziqing was calling him. Her code name was 2333. Ning Shu walked over with some difficulty to Mei Ziqing's side. "How did your soul become like this?" Mei Ziqing asked in surprise. Ning Shu looked at Mei Ziqing's strong soul and felt bitter. "It became like this because I was doing a mission. Congratulations on becoming a super mission taker. We can team up in more dangerous worlds in the future. Let's go to the restaurant." Mei Ziqing reached out to Ning Shu, but her hand went through Ning Shu's body. Ning Shu, he couldn't even hold hands with others. Mei Ziqing smiled. "It's good that you can enter the law of space after spending some soul power. Please don't gloat." Mei Ziqing covered her mouth and laughed. "Why would I be gloating? I'm just curious as to what kind of mission would cause such a mess." As they spoke, Ning Shu and Mei Ziqing arrived at the entrance of the restaurant. It was Ning Shu's first time in the law space, and his soul could not withstand the power of the law space, so he walked rather slowly. Mei Ziqing probably wanted to take care of Ning Shu. She walked very slowly and chatted with Ning Shu along the way. Ning Shu walked into the restaurant, which was relatively empty. There were only a few people sitting around. There were both men and women. Ning Shu was a little excited. This was the first time he had seen so many super mission takers. There were also many cities in this space. There was one city in each law zone, and there were also super mission takers scattered in other cities. Ning Shu was very excited. Ning Shu and Mei Ziqing found a table and sat down. A waiter came up to them and asked them what they wanted to eat. Ning Shu saw that the waiter's soul was extremely condensed and arrogant. Could it be that even a waiter was a super mission taker? Indeed, there would always be someone better than you. Mei Ziqing ordered a few dishes. Ning Shu said, "The dishes I ordered can strengthen the soul." "Thank you." Ning Shu noted down the dishes Mei Ziqing ordered. Ning Shu asked, "Have you comprehended the law?" Mei Ziqing picked up her teacup and drank. "I have comprehended a bit of the law of water, but it's just a flash of inspiration. There's still a long way to go before I can fully comprehend it." Sigh. Ning Shu thought, so difficult. After a while, the waiter served the dishes. The dishes were very exquisite and whetted one's appetite. Even if one's soul was not hungry, seeing these dishes would make one's soul hungry. "Let's eat." Mei Ziqing said, "You can't underestimate the people here, just like that waiter. They stay in the law space for a long time. When they have nothing to do, they work in the restaurant to earn faith power. Everything here uses faith power. In this space, only merit and power of faith are hard currencies. What we're eating now is paid with merit or power of faith." Ning Shu thought, "Seems like we've come to a very high-class place." Ning Shu ate a mouthful of food and felt that his soul was very comfortable. It was good stuff. 2333, aren't you looking for the world's origin? You can go to the trading hall. Maybe you can find it. Mei Ziqing said to Ning Shu. Every time Ning Shu heard 2333, he would jump. He felt that Mei Ziqing was calling him 2333 and not her. "You can just call me Ning Shu." Ning Shu said. "Okay, Ning Shu. I'm Mei Ziqing. Now that we know each other by name, we can be considered partners." Mei Ziqing smiled. Ning Shu nodded. Ning Shu and Mei Ziqing were talking mainly because they wanted to understand more about this nomological space. If Mei Ziqing needed her help in the future, she would definitely help. Whatever Ning Shu asked, Mei Ziqing would tell Ning Shu what she knew. If she didn't know, Mei Ziqing wouldn't be able to answer Ning Shu. At this moment, someone came down from upstairs. When he saw Ning Shu, his eyes lit up. "There's a newcomer." He closed the fan in his hand and walked over elegantly. Ning Shu looked at the man. He was wearing a man's qipao and had a fan in his hand. There was a painting of mountains and rivers on the fan. He looked like an elegant man from the Republic of China with a parted hairstyle. When Mei Ziqing saw this person, she rolled her eyes and took a sip of tea. "Are you new here? Have you registered?" The Cheongsam man asked Ning Shu. He lifted the hem of his cheongsam and sat down. Mei Ziqing explained, "It's just an identification. I'll take you to do it later." The embroidered face blooms with a smile, the slanted flying duck compliments her cheeks. The moment you move your eyes, you'll be guessed. One side is deep and charming, the other half is tender and resentful. The moon moves and the shadow moves again. The man in the qipao looked at Ning Shu and read. Ning Shu, who had read a lot of books, could immediately tell that this was an obscene song. "Can you really read this?" Ning Shu looked at the man in the qipao silently. This was sexual harassment. The man in the qipao opened his fan and fanned himself lightly. He didn't care about Ning Shu's gaze at all. Mei Ziqing said to Ning Shu, "You can agree." Ning Shu raised his eyebrows. Mei Ziqing wanted him to agree to do that with this man. Ning Shu looked at the man and saw that his legs were trembling slightly under the table. His hand was gripping the fan tightly. He looked very leisurely and flirtatious, but his body was honestly nervous. Ning Shu asked, "Let's do it when the moon is above the trees." The man in the qipao's expression changed. Then he read, "The body of a 28-year-old girl is limp. The sword at her waist will cut the foolish man. Although the head won't fall, the bone marrow will dry up." Chapter 1532. The man in the cheongsam was saying something along the lines of, "Don't be fooled by the beautiful woman's soft body. She seems to be carrying a murderous axe around her waist." Although the perverted man's head didn't fall to the ground, he would unknowingly be fucked by the woman. Men, don't lust after women. She will take your life. Kill you. I'm not that kind of person. Are you misunderstanding something? The man in the cheongsam shook his head. Ning Shu was speechless. Fuck, did he meet a retard? He said a bunch of obscene words to her and Mei Ziqing, and now he was serious. "Remember to register." The man in the cheongsam waved his fan and walked away. He even turned back and winked at Ning Shu. The crowd booed. They obviously knew the man in the cheongsam and were teasing him. Ning Shu was speechless. What's wrong with him? Ning Shu and Mei Ziqing asked. Mei Ziqing couldn't help but laugh. You mean him? He especially likes to flirt with new girls. He's an old virgin, but he pretends to be unruly and flirt with girls. If the girl agrees, he immediately gives up. Ning Shu's expression became clear. So he was a pure man on the outside. He probably felt that his reputation as an old virgin was bad, and he liked to flirt with girls. If a girl decided to date him, he would immediately become a coward. Coward. However, those who could enter the space of laws weren't simple people. Some had even mastered the rules. Ning Shu and Mei Ziqing finished all the dishes on the table. After all, they had to pay with the power of faith and merit. Mei Ziqing paid for the meal, but Ning Shu insisted on going Dutch. After all, her relationship with Mei Ziqing wasn't good enough for her to pay without any psychological burden. Mei Ziqing didn't say anything. After that, Mei Ziqing brought Ning Shu to the trading hall to get an identity card. The trading hall was huge. Many people were exchanging or buying things. There were also official auctions. Ning Shu looked at the stalls one by one. He didn't find any world origin. It's not easy to find something like the world's origin. Are you using it for yourself or for someone else? The world's origin is only used to construct the world. Other than that, it has no other use. Mei Ziqing asked Ning Shu. Ning Shu asked Mei Ziqing, are you going to construct a world? Mei Ziqing shook his head. Building a world isn't a small matter. Besides, I haven't found the medium to build a world. Those who can build a world are all powerful beings. I want to comprehend the laws right now. Ning Shu frowned. Only by constructing a world can we control our own destiny. As long as the world exists, our destiny will be connected to the world we construct. The people above will not dare to kill us. So what if you've grasped the laws? If you're killed, you'll have nothing left. That's true, but it's too difficult to construct a world. It's not easy to find a carrier or a world's origin. Ning Shu, constructing a world requires sufficient luck. It's not like building a house. Mei Ziqing wasn't in a good mood when he talked about this. However, if you've grasped the laws, you'll be considered a powerhouse. When you're killed, you'll have to think about it. After all, it's not easy to produce a mission enforcer who can comprehend the laws. Ning Shu felt stifled by Mei Ziqing's words. Even if you've comprehended the laws, you'll still be killed if you do something wrong. A mission enforcer who couldn't be controlled and caused serious consequences would still be killed even if you've comprehended the laws. This was a matter of survival. Survival was so serious. If you want to reach the top, you'll have to endure all kinds of setbacks. You'll have to give up something in order to gain something. Ning Shu wasn't afraid of loneliness. That was the title of a king. Along the way, Ning Shu felt that his luck was pretty good. He already had a carrier to construct a world and 2 world origins. Ning Shu felt that he was still favored by the heavens. Forget it. Let's not talk about this. Mei Ziqing smiled. Ning Shu said, I'm going to comprehend the laws of water. Ning Shu nodded. Try to comprehend it as soon as possible. Mei Ziqing's soul gradually disappeared. Once Mei Ziqing left, Ning Shu grimaced. The force on the limestone floor made Ning Shu feel very uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. 2333, send me back, Ning Shu said to 2333. Okay. The feeling of the world spinning came again. Ning Shu hadn't felt the weakness of his soul in a long time. It was all kinds of discomfort. Back in the system space, Ning Shu lay on the bed. The teleportation process was too uncomfortable. With her soul's current state, she couldn't even stand to stay in the city for a while, let alone comprehend the laws. If she left the city, she might be turned into ashes by the laws. Ning Shu opened the exchange store to see if there were any potions that could repair her soul. When she became a divine beast, the backlash from the heavenly Tao damaged her soul. Then, she suffered a heavenly tribulation. Ning Shu browsed the exchange store and saw the spiritual god soothing potion. There was a green potion that could repair her soul. But the price was too expensive. It cost 30 merit points. Damn, she didn't get any merit points in 3 worlds. A potion that was the same color as kiwi juice cost 30 merit points. It could be blacker. But the feeling of her soul being drained was too uncomfortable. Ning Shu gritted her teeth and clicked on the exchange store. Ning Shu drank the potion and felt a cool and gentle energy swimming in her soul. It was like a dry land that was receiving a rainstorm. It was refreshing. The pain and discomfort of her soul also slowly disappeared. The 30 merit points were well worth it. She didn't know who set up the exchange store. So black-hearted, so black-hearted. Profiteer. Ning Shu closed her eyes and planned to sleep. The 3 nerve-wracking missions were finally completed. She became a super mission enforcer and entered the law space. The city in the law space was very safe. It used a power similar to a barrier to cover the city and prevent the chaotic laws from hurting the mission enforcers. Ning Shu yawned. Too tired. When Ning Shu woke up, the system space was still the same. There was no day or night. The system space didn't have a flow of time, so Ning Shu didn't know how long she slept. Ning Shu stretched herself lazily. After drinking the medicine and sleeping, she felt as if she had been injected with chicken blood. She was alive again. The world was beautiful. Ning Shu looked down at her hand. Although it was still very weak, it would soon become strong again. As long as she completed the missions, she would have pure soul power. Ning Shu got up from the bed and took out the Peerless Martial Art from the bookshelf. What made Ning Shu very surprised was that the Peerless Martial Arts had actually become very heavy. Ning Shu actually had no way to lift her up with one hand. The Peerless Martial Art had a qualitative change. Chapter 1533. Ning Shu looked at the thick and heavy Peerless Martial Arts book. The words, Peerless Martial Arts, written in golden Xiaozhuan script on the page seemed to darken. Now, the pages had disappeared, and the Peerless Martial Art had turned into a rectangular object. Ning Shu released her mental power and invaded the inside of the Peerless Martial Art. Under the probing of Ning Shu's spiritual power, the Peerless Martial Art had formed a lifeless space. There was nothing in this space, nothing at all. Although there were no signs of living creatures, Ning Shu was very happy, because a book formed a space, and it was a space formed by faith power. As long as she found the 5 world origins, her world would evolve into living creatures. The living creatures living in this space would provide her with an endless supply of faith power. At the same time, her fate was connected to the world she built. If she died, the world she built would also disappear, the living creatures in the world would also disappear. This was why the people above didn't dare to casually kill the strong people who built the world. Hundreds of millions of living creatures couldn't just disappear like that. The world had its own laws. Even if she was now in soul form, Ning Shu felt her heart pounding. She was very excited. Everything was progressing in a good direction. Ning Shu felt that she was a person who was blessed by the heavens. Release your soul origin and connect with the world. 2333 Ning Shu said. She needed soul origin, Ning Shu thought. She took out a trace of her soul origin and invaded the world. From now on this space was one with her. Ning Shu's soul origin invaded the Peerless Martial Art. He felt that he had gained control over the Peerless Martial Art. When she took the book again, it didn't feel heavy. Ning Shu put the book on the bookshelf. She would soon be able to build her own world. She wouldn't have to worry about being obliterated. Ning Shu looked at the 2 beads on the wall. The black hole formed by the fusion of the 2 beads was only the size of a fist. It should be done soon. The black hole was small, the effect on the system space was even smaller. He wondered what kind of heavenly orb would be formed from the soul orb and the orb that could freely travel between worlds. The soul pearl was truly the most thirsty thing Ning Shu had ever seen. It was absorbing souls and even boundary stones. So far, the souls that the soul pearl had devoured were on par with the soul pearl that could summon creatures through the planes at will. It had even snatched boundary stones that could strengthen the planes. Ning Shu would be very angry if the fusion turned out to be useless. The system space almost collapsed because of the fight between the two beads. Ning Shu took out the time ring that he had obtained in the past. The time ray that this ring shot out could instantly annihilate a person, even their soul. Could the ruby ring help her comprehend the law of time? The law of time stone. Ning Shu held the ring in his hand, feeling a little nervous. He was afraid that he would accidentally kill himself. The laws of time were too powerful. Ning Shu revered and wanted to control them. Ning Shu pulled out the red rose from the vase. The red rose had always been delicate and beautiful, exuding the fragrance of roses. It was hard to imagine that this was a real flower. Moreover, it was a fresh flower that had been broken. Without the nourishment of the roots, it could still be so bright. Even if it was a fake flower, its color would fade after a long time. However, the red rose did not change at all. What in the world was this? How could it remain like this for so long? Ning Shu pointed to his chin and looked at the ruby ring and the red rose placed together. Both were bright red and beautiful. Sigh, the laws of time. Ning Shu placed the rose in the vase and put away the ruby ring. In her current soul state, it was a little difficult for her to enter the time city, let alone comprehend the laws of time. Even a tiny, negligible law on the blue stone slab was enough to make her unable to sense it. It seemed that the road to comprehending the laws of time was long. Every time Ning Shu took a step forward, he found that there was another scenery in front of him. It kept tempting him to go up and climb up. Ning Shu let out a long breath and opened the chat system. The chat system would push some news about the mission enforcers. Mission enforcers were also a social group. Ning Shu browsed the news. If he had nothing to do, he could read the gossip. But soon, Ning Shu couldn't stand it anymore. He was always fed a mouthful of dog food, and it was forced. Fuck. For example, number 2367 gave number 67450 a space. Giving something, writing about it. A space required a lot of merit and faith. He was really rich. Mission enforcers also liked to show off their love. Ning Shu felt that the whole world was targeting a cute single dog like him. Especially when he knew that number 2367 and number 67450 were both men, Ning Shu's face was even colder. Fuck. There were some complaints in the news, and some people wrote about their experiences in doing missions. It was more like a forum, where anyone could speak freely. Ning Shu just browsed and didn't comment. Especially when he saw that the forum liked to use the word 2333-23333 to express his feelings. Ning Shu felt uncomfortable. After browsing for a while, Ning Shu closed the chat system and asked 2333, "Can't I see the mission enforcer first?" The black hole was so small that it shouldn't affect the mission enforcer much. Ning Shu was standing in front of the black hole, and the suction force of the black hole wasn't enough to suck him in. 2333 said, "I think it's better to wait until the fusion is complete. If something happens to the mission enforcer, both of us will be in trouble." I tried my best to suppress the aftermath of the battle between the two beads. To be honest, it was very difficult. I can't guarantee that I won't be able to suppress it. Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu thought that the fusion of the two beads was almost complete. At least there should be a winner. However, 2333 told her that they were still fighting. Ning Shu felt a little tired. Couldn't they just fuse the beads faster? Ning Shu couldn't remember the last time she met the mission enforcer first. It was all because of these 2 beads. Ning Shu said, then let's go do the mission. Doing missions could give her soul power, and it could strengthen her soul. The powerful soul that she was so proud of was gone just like that. Do you want to do a mission? 2333 asked Ning Shu. Ning Shu was speechless. 2333 She only cared about herself when she was strong. I remember that it hasn't been long since the last mission. Why do I have to do it again? Ning Shu didn't like to deal with wild systems. The process of robbing a wild system was a little troublesome. It has been a long time since the last mission. Ning Shu, your memory isn't very good. 2333 said. Ning Shu said. My memory is very good. If I think it hasn't been long, then it hasn't been long. Chapter 1534. 2333 heard Ning Shu's unreasonable words and was speechless for a while. In the end, he said, okay, you're right. You're right, 2333 get out of here, Ning Shu nodded. I just finished 3 chain missions. Let's find an easier mission first before doing the system mission. I have something to say, but I don't know if I should say it, Ning Shu said. 2333 Since you know it's not appropriate, then don't say it, please, 2333 said. It seems like it doesn't matter if you're strong or not. Why should I help you? You have to give me a beautiful blueprint, 2333, you can get mission rewards by doing the system mission. Isn't that a good reason? 2333 said. Ning Shu shook his head. What I mean is that I don't see any benefits if you're strong. To a certain extent, I'm your reserve power. My power supports the entire system space. Every time you enter a mission, you have to locate the client's body. This requires energy. If I don't have energy, you won't be able to find the client's body in the billions of worlds. And you won't be able to find the client's body in the billions of living creatures, 2333 said in a deep voice. Ning Shu, I don't know why you always think that I'm full of evil intentions. But we are one. Don't think that all the benefits from doing the system mission belong to me. We're just helping each other. If that's the case, let's get straight to the point. Ning Shu sat cross-legged on the sofa. He held his chin and said faintly, from your tone, it seems like you're not satisfied with becoming a system. That's true. Being wiped of memory and without a physical body. No one would be satisfied with that. Ning Shu felt that he needed to understand his work partner. He used to think that 2333 was a naughty retard. It seemed that the word retard was outdated to describe 2333. It's not that I'm not satisfied. It's just that I want to be strong. I want to have a physical body one day and be able to appear under the sun. Ning Shu, I won't hurt you, and I can't hurt you, just like you can't hurt me. We are people who will be together for the rest of our lives. Ning Shu was speechless. Hearing 2333's words, Ning Shu felt hopeless. They had been together for a lifetime. As long as she was not erased, who knew how long her life would be? Ning Shu said, let's do a simple mission first. We'll do the system mission next time. Oh. 2333 asked, do we enter the quest world now? Ning Shu nodded and opened up the system exchange store to exchange for fasting pills and medicines. Who knows, he might be able to use it in a mission. Ning Shu, who had stayed on planet Seldar, was even more fascinated by food. No matter how extreme the environment was, as long as there was food, he could survive and complete the mission. Let's do the mission now, an easy one, Ning Shu said. After becoming a super mission taker, even the simplest mission will be a bit difficult. It definitely won't be as easy as a beginner mission, 2333 said and teleported Ning Shu away. Ning Shu felt dizzy and her vision blurred. She felt dizzy. When she fused with this body, she felt her body twitching. Ning Shu opened his eyes. His body was extremely uncomfortable and soft. Ning Shu saw himself lying in the forest. Tall trees covered the sky, the ground was covered with fallen leaves, and the stones were covered with moss. Ning Shu struggled to get up. His heart was beating fast, and his stomach was convulsing. He spat out white foam. His calf was swollen and there were 2 small teeth marks. Was this a snake bite? Ning Shu quickly pinched his calf and squeezed the wound. He felt for the dagger at his waist. He pulled out the knife and cut open the teeth marks. Black blood flowed out. Ning Shu squeezed the wound hard, trying to squeeze the poison out of his body. Ning Shu felt that it was difficult to breathe. He didn't know when the original owner had been bitten by the snake. Ning Shu bit the tip of his tongue to prevent himself from fainting. He squeezed the wound with his hands. Ning Shu squeezed until his hands were sore. Finally, he squeezed out blood. It was no longer thick black blood. Ning Shu took out an anti-inflammatory pill and ate it. He felt dizzy. There was probably still some poison in his body. Ning Shu looked around. This place was quite like a tropical rainforest. It was full of murderous intent. There were poisonous insects, snakes, and some terrifying animals. Ning Shu struggled, but ended up sitting on the ground. Ning Shu had a feeling that something was secretly spying on her. Anyway, it made her feel very unsafe. Ning Shu found a branch and stood up with it. The leg that was bitten by the snake was numb and he couldn't feel it at all. He just didn't know if there were any herbs around. It was reasonable to say that tropical rainforests should be rich in resources. Ning Shu felt very hot. It was estimated to be more than 38 degrees. His clothes were wet with sweat and his underwear was clearly visible. Ning Shu wanted to find a relatively safe place to accept the plot and get rid of the feeling of being spied on. How could the client be in such a place? Could it be an explorer? Sometimes, exploring was a suicidal act. Ning Shu straightened his back and frowned. Why was he always being spied on? Ning Shu released his spiritual force and looked around. As a result, he saw a camera on a tree. The camera flashed red. Ning Shu didn't look back at the camera. Instead, he directly used his spiritual force to push the camera down the tree. With a bang, the camera fell to the ground and broke. Ning Shu looked at the camera and felt that he had to accept the plot first. There was actually a camera in this place. Ning Shu sat under the tree, cross-legged, and began to practice his unique martial arts. The air here was humid and stuffy. Occasionally, he could hear waves and the cry of seagulls. Ning Shu suspected that she was currently on an island. Occasionally, she would hear helicopters flying over her head, and the sound of propellers spinning at high speed. Although a camera was broken, Ning Shu still felt that he was being spied on. Ning Shu didn't sit cross-legged. Instead, he leaned against the tree, straightened his legs and closed his eyes as if he was asleep. In fact, he released his spiritual force to observe whether there was any danger around him. He also accepted the plot. This was a program called Survival on an Island. It was a live broadcast show created by a TV station. There were many people participating in this program. In addition to the client, there were many other people participating, a total of 20 people. The purpose of this program was to survive on this deserted island for a month. Chapter 1535. The sponsor of this game was a big corporation. They were very rich and had so much money that they could burn. They sponsored this show and provided this island. By the way, this island was also a private production area for rich people. It was said that they bought it for this show. It was quite a gimmick. The client was called Su Xian. She was a member of this live show. Why did she want to participate in this show? It was because of the generous rewards. If she could survive on this island for a month, she could get a reward of 10 million yuan. 10 million yuan was not a small amount. The client's mother had uremia and it had reached a very serious stage. There was no other way except for a kidney transplant. The client's parents divorced when she was young. Su Xian lived with her mother. She relied on her mother for food, clothing, housing, transportation, and school. Her mother had uremia and now needed a kidney transplant. She could not afford to take medicine and dialysis, not to mention a kidney transplant. Especially when there was a settlement, the surgery might be done at any time. However, the surgery fee was a big problem. All these years, they relied on Su Xian's mother to support the family alone. Their life had been very difficult. Ever since Su Xian's mother fell ill, the family did not have much savings. Su Xian could not imagine her mother leaving her. Su Xian's mother did not even find another man to marry for this daughter. Perhaps it was a man who hurt her. Su Xian's mother practically used her own blood to nurture Su Xian into a university student. However, at this time, Su Xian's mother fell ill. The family did not have money, and it was impossible for her to look for her father. She was already over 18 years old. Her father had no responsibility to raise her. Not to mention, her father had already started a new family. How could he give her money? At this time, Su Xian saw the TV station looking for reality show actors. All kinds of people could participate. If they succeeded, they would get a reward of 10 million yuan. If she got 10 million yuan, her mother's surgery fee would be settled. The interview went smoothly. Perhaps it was Su Xian's identity as a university student that allowed her to enter this live show game. This live show selected people from all walks of life, all kinds of identities, and all kinds of professions. There were university students, doctors, lawyers, and even gangsters. There were men and women. There were a total of 20 people. They probably wanted to see how people of different professions would perform on a deserted island. This way, there would be drama and drama. Everyone came for the 10 million yuan. After all, 10 million yuan was not a small amount. Some people would not be able to earn it in their whole lives. Regardless of whether or not he had his reasons, he wanted to win and get the 10 million. After that, a helicopter brought a group of people to the island. They were not given any resources, nothing, and the 20 people were thrown to a deserted island. The harsh environment of the island was beyond everyone's expectations. There was no food, only walkie-talkies and daggers. Poisonous snakes and insects were everywhere, and there were even some unknown species. It was simply inconceivable. As a person who couldn't even recognize all the food crops, it was inconceivable for him to find something edible. Just like everyone else, the client was dumbfounded. Moreover, not all of them were released at the same time. 20 of them were scattered in different areas. He probably didn't want the 20 of them to group up and wanted to observe them alone. As a program, it had to be broadcasted. The client had a bad feeling in his heart. They were really leaving them on the island and ignoring them. The client could only record the number of days on the island by day and night. Everyone's actions were being monitored by the cameras. The island was filled with cameras. Eating, drinking, and defecating were all under the surveillance of others. The client was at a loss at first, but after a while, he managed to find an edible bug. That's right, it was a bug. When people were hungry, they could only eat bugs. Any edible fruit in the forest would be eaten by the birds and insects. When Ning Shu came, the client was bitten by a poisonous snake and died. The original owner's wish was to leave the island alive. She couldn't imagine how desperate her mother would be when she heard that her daughter had died. There was no such thing as a free lunch in the world. There was a 10 million reward. As for whether or not there was a 10 million reward in the end, Su Xian didn't know. Because she had already lost her life to the poisonous snake's fangs. Ning Shu felt hungry. He secretly took out a fasting pill and ate it. The fasting pill turned into a warm current that flowed into his stomach. His body felt alive again. When the client died, it was the 4th day on the island. Actually, the client should have paid attention when they were participating in the program. Because they had signed an agreement beforehand. The content of the agreement was that if the contestants encountered any danger during the mission, the organizers would not be responsible. Moreover, the organizers didn't tell the 20 people what they would encounter later. They also didn't tell the 20 people that it was very dangerous. If they didn't want to participate, they could withdraw. Under the temptation of 10 million, plus the organizers' coaxing and cheating, the program, Survival on a Deserted Island, was born. The client was desperate. Even though he knew it wasn't easy, his mother couldn't wait any longer. Ning Shu sighed. He couldn't figure out the purpose of this program. Ning Shu closed his eyes and began to practice his unique martial arts. He wanted to see if he could leave the island after a month. Ning Shu's heart was filled with shadows. The original owner died relatively early. As for what happened after, he didn't know. Ning Shu even thought that none of the 20 of them would be able to leave the island alive. This was an isolated island surrounded by the ocean. There was no way to leave the island without a boat. He didn't know what the effect of this program would be. If everyone died in the program, it would be even more explosive. The corporation that sponsored this program probably had something fishy. Sure enough, they had too much money to burn. Maybe the rich were bored and wanted to have some fun. Sure enough, the happiness of the rich was unimaginable. Because of the snake venom, Ning Shu's body was very uncomfortable. Moreover, the weather was very hot and his mouth was dry. What Ning Shu needed to do now was to find a water source. He was surrounded by the ocean. The ocean was salty and naturally couldn't be drunk. The client collected dew from the leaves every morning when there was dew and drank until he was full. Then, when the sun came out and the dew evaporated, there was no water to drink for the whole day. The client didn't find a source of fresh water in the past few days. There were so many creatures on this island. There must be a source of fresh water. Ning Shu cultivated the fiery yang energy in his dantian. He sent the fiery yang energy into the blood vessels and meridians all over his body. He wanted to force the poison out of his blood. It was not good to be in a daze all the time. Living on a deserted island, he had to be vigilant. Some unknown insects and poisonous insects could kill him. Chapter 1536. If it was an ordinary person, it would be really difficult to survive on this island. Or survive for a month. There were cameras with flashing red dots all around, recording her every move. Ning Shu turned a blind eye to the cameras. She just wanted to get out of here. She just needed to persevere for another 25 days. Ning Shu was skeptical about the 10 million yuan she could get. It would be strange if the TV program didn't have any tricks. How could they give out 10 million? It was also because the client was so anxious that she didn't know what to do, so she took the risk. Because she had no way to get the high surgery fee. Life was so helpless. As for selling her body, it was useless. Ning Shu worked hard to cultivate. She didn't move much and had been moving around this area. Only after being bitten by the snake did Ning Shu not have any more problems. After eating the fasting pill, Ning Shu didn't feel hungry. However, under the camera, Ning Shu could only catch termites to eat. These termites were rich in nutritious protein. Ning Shu ate ants, but she didn't want to eat worms. The taste of worms was too good. When she bit down, the juice splattered and splashed into her mouth. Oh my God! If the worms were fried and crispy, it would be another story. Ning Shu ate ants to show others. How could a person live without eating for a few days? Even if she got out alive, she would probably be dissected and used as a research subject. Ning Shu was like the client. She only collected dew from the leaves in the morning to drink. Ning Shu could at least control her body and let herself excrete as little as possible to ensure that there was enough water in her body. Ning Shu didn't want to fall to the point of drinking her own urine. It was supposed to be an easy task. Just how much of a pain in the ass was he to come up with such a program? Ning Shu had been cultivating. If she really couldn't go back alive, Ning Shu planned to swim home. Of course, Ning Shu didn't even know where the client's home was. She would probably die of exhaustion in the sea, and there were dangerous sea creatures in the sea. Mama, why is this world so cruel? Ning Shu sat under the tree and leaned against it. There were marks carved by Ning Shu with a dagger on the tree to record the days. Ning Shu drew 2 lines to indicate that 2 days had passed, plus the client's 5 days. Only 7 days. There were still 23 days left. He probably couldn't stand Ning Shu's idleness. Ning Shu's walkie-talkie beeped, and a man's cold voice came from it. Number 15, please find your partner now. Ning Shu was speechless. Looking for companions. Even if she had to run all over the mountain, it was already very difficult for her to survive. Why did she have to find trouble for no reason? What if he walked into a dangerous place? It was probably because he wanted her to encounter some kind of danger that it would be especially exciting. Ning Shu pursed his lips and leaned against the tree without moving. Since they were able to use the walkie-talkie, it meant that other than the 20 people, there were other people on the island directing everyone's actions. She had clearly only asked everyone to survive within a month, but now she was actually asked to find her companions. Bullshit. Ning Shu turned a deaf ear to the orders on the walkie-talkie. If there were other people on the island, they would definitely eat and drink well. She might as well just rob them. Ning Shu thought about it and gave up. The most important thing for her was to leave this place alive and get enough money to allow the client's mother to perform the surgery. The client was so poor that she took the risk to participate in this show. Where would she get a large sum of money? The show's reward was 10 million. Ning Shu could only chuckle and didn't have any hope. Ning Shu wiped the sweat off her face. Her t-shirt was all wet and clinging to her skin. The weather was too hot. If this sorry state was broadcasted, it would really be, beep beep beep. The walkie-talkie at Ning Shu's waist rang again. Please follow the instructions. Find your companions and survive together with them. Ning Shu let out a long breath, stood up with the help of a wooden stick, and limped away. After all, her leg was injured. Wouldn't it be strange if she walked on flat ground? Find your companions and survive together with them. But in the end, there would only be one winner. Who would get the 10 million? If the 10 million and 20 people were to be divided, each person would get 500,000. If more than one person survived in the end, how would the money be divided? Ning Shu always felt that this show was full of malice. Could it be that they made such a show to test human nature? Ning Shu released her spiritual force. If there was anything dangerous ahead, Ning Shu would avoid it. Not only were the animals dangerous, but the plants here were also dangerous. If she encountered poisonous grass, she would still be in trouble. Ning Shu walked very slowly. If she encountered any suitable herbs, Ning Shu would put it in her mouth and put it on the wound. In order to squeeze out the poisonous blood, Ning Shu cut the wound with a knife. The jungle weather was hot and humid. Ning Shu's wound began to fester, and this was still under the healing of the spiritual energy. The main reason was that the environment was too bad. Ning Shu was more afraid of mosquitoes. The mosquitoes here were very big. If she had malaria, she would die if she didn't get treatment on the island. There were poisonous snakes hidden everywhere. They had worked so hard to make a show. It was simply perverted. The client was really dead. She was really dead. Ning Shu didn't limp fast. It was more to observe the surrounding situation. Ning Shu realized that there were too many cameras on the island to count. How much investment did they have to spend? It was just to make a show. But this show was already dead. Wasn't the TV station afraid of being sued? Or did they want the audience to think that this live broadcast of survival on a deserted island was a show? The person was actually not dead. After walking for a day, Ning Shu met a person. Was this the companion mentioned by the walkie-talkie? This was a woman in her 30s. According to the information, she was a housewife. When she saw Ning Shu's hand, she was pleasantly surprised. She heaved a sigh of relief. I finally found you. What's wrong with your leg? The woman asked Ning Shu. Ning Shu sat on a moss-covered rock and said, I was bitten by a snake. Ning Shu was a little surprised that this housewife could survive for 8 days. The woman leaned against Ning Shu and sat down. Is the snake poisonous? Seeing that you're fine, I guess that snake shouldn't be poisonous. Ning Shu didn't say anything. According to the environment, snakes in this environment couldn't be harmless and non-poisonous. Even if they weren't poisonous, they could be huge and use their body strength to kill their prey. Ning Shu's woman asked, did you receive an order from the walkie-talkie? The woman shook her head. No. Ning Shu frowned. Was she the only one who received it? Ning Shu stared at the woman. Her face had brown spots and her figure was a little out of shape. She didn't have the graceful figure of a young woman. The woman avoided Ning Shu's gaze. She stood up and said, let's find out what to eat tonight. Chapter 1537. The housewife said that she did not receive an order. But Ning Shu remembered that when she saw the housewife, the first sentence she said was I finally found you. It meant that this person was looking for her, and when she asked her, she said that she did not receive an order. Obviously, she was lying. Have you found a water source? I'm dying of thirst. The housewife Ning Shu asked, by the way, my name is Wu Wan. What about you? Ning Shu said, my name is Su Xian. I didn't find a water source. How did you survive without finding water? I found a kind of beetroot. I eat beetroot every day and barely survive. Wu Wan said. Although she is a housewife, she knows all kinds of vegetables. Ning Shu said, I eat ants every day. Why are you looking for me? It's not easy for the two of us to meet. Let's go together. It's easier for the two of us to survive together. Wu Wan looked like a gentle housewife. Ning Shu nodded, okay. In the evening, Ning Shu and Wu Wan leaned against a tree. There are all kinds of birds in the forest, fireflies fly in front of them, and all kinds of nocturnal animals come out. Ning Shu closed his eyes and released his spiritual force to check the surrounding situation. He also observed Wu Wan. Wu Wan must have also received an order, but he didn't know what the order was. If it was the same order as her, why did she say that she didn't receive an order? Ning Shu will not take the initiative to harm others, but on this isolated island, people's hearts are unpredictable, not to mention the temptation of money. They are all competitors, and there is a conflict of interests. Maybe someone will stab him in the back. Wu Wan is very vigilant. After sleeping for a while, she will wake up to see if there is any danger. She also did not wake up Ning Shu. The night was very peaceful. But in the early morning, when the sky was just bright, Wu Wan pushed Ning Shu and saw that Ning Shu still had his eyes closed and did not wake up. Wu Wan tightly pursed her lips, pulled out a dagger, and ruthlessly stabbed Ning Shu. Ning Shu had been paying attention to Wu Wan with his spiritual power. When he saw Wu Wan holding a sharp knife and stabbing towards him, he opened his eyes and tilted his body. Wu Wan's knife stabbed into the tree trunk behind Ning Shu. Moreover, it was a little deep. Wu Wan's face was pale as she tried to pull the knife out, but she couldn't. Ning Shu looked at Wu Wan. I have no enmity with you. Why do you want to kill me? If this knife really pierced her neck, she would definitely not be able to survive. Ning Shu felt that Wu Wan was quite smart. She killed people in the wee hours of the morning when they were still asleep. Besides, if she killed someone at night, she would have to sleep with the corpse for the whole night. Covering her face with her hands, Wu Wan's shoulders trembled as she yelled out in grief, "As long as I kill you, I'll get 10 million yen. I need 10 million yen. Ning Shu shrugged. She also needed $10 million. Who wouldn't want $10 million to participate in this program? My daughter is only 4 years old. She is still so young. Her father abandoned her because of her illness. As long as you die, I will have money to treat Tian Tian." Ning Shu narrowed his eyes and looked at the camera tied to the tree with a flashing red dot. The person who gave them the order was not funny. He gave her a chance to survive with her companion, but let another person kill her. Finding a companion to survive with made people relax their vigilance from the beginning. And the order given to another person was to kill. From the beginning, it was one person who wanted to kill another person. You want to kill me to save your daughter. Your daughter is innocent, and so am I. Forgive me for saying this, but your daughter's illness can't be cured. Wu Wan covered her face and cried. Wu Wan was originally a housewife. It was for her daughter that she summoned up the courage to kill Ning Shu. She wanted to get 10 million yen so much that she threw out a bait. Wu Wan had to hate it. It was just that if you did it once, there would be a second time. This time, you were told to kill one person. Next time, you would kill two. In order to get money, you could only break your bottom line again and again. Because she was not willing to give up 10 million yen just like that. I'm sorry. I really didn't do it on purpose. My Tian Tian, her arms were bruised. She would hug me and say, "Mom, don't cry. Tian Tian doesn't hurt. It really doesn't hurt." Wu Wan's expression was panicked and regretful. When she mentioned her daughter, her face was full of pain. Ning Shu pulled out the knife from the tree and threw it in front of Wu Wan. Some things, once started, can't be turned back. Do you really think you can get 10 million yen if you kill me? Ning Shu whispered in Wu Wan's ear. Wu Wan wanted to kill her. Ning Shu was angry, but the society outside the isolated island was a society ruled by law, and there were countless cameras around them. As long as Wu Wan killed her, it would be a crime. The cameras would record it from all directions. Some people could escape the punishment of the law, but ordinary people like Wu Wan would definitely be punished by the law. At that time, don't talk about saving your daughter, you might be in jail. Ning Shu whispered in Wu Wan's ear. Wu Wan clenched her fists tightly, and her body couldn't stop trembling. Ning Shu propped up his body. It seems that the two of us can't be companions anymore. Goodbye. Ning Shu took the branch and limped away. Ning Shu wouldn't kill anyone, but there were countless dangers on this island. There were still 22 days. This time was enough to torture a person. Ning Shu walked slowly, and the walkie-talkie on his body rang again. "Number 15, please kill number 8 now." Ning Shu rolled his eyes. He was really trying to find a way to make them fight. Ning took the branch and limped, ignoring the words on the walkie-talkie. "This is the jungle, so please respect the law of the jungle. Number 8 wants to kill you, so what you have to do now is to kill number 8 to prevent future troubles. As long as you kill number 8, you will be close to 10 million. The voice on the other end of the walkie-talkie was bewitching. Although it was cold and routine, the content was full of bewitchment. Ning Shu still turned a deaf ear and limped further away from where Wu Wan was. Facing the disobedient Ning Shu, the person on the other end of the walkie-talkie was not angry. Instead, he said, "Number 15, please think about your mother. Your mother is lying in the hospital now and needs this money. Maybe your mother has been stopped taking medicine and driven out of the hospital. Number 15, please kill number 8. Your mother will get the best treatment. When you become the final winner, your mother will become a healthy person. Ning Shu stopped in her tracks. She was threatening her with the client's mother. The weaknesses and ambitions of the 20 people were clear to the speaker. Ning Shu wanted to explode, but she couldn't figure out the significance of this program. Chapter 1538. So, please turn back now and kill number 8 who wants to harm you. Ning Shu was speechless. Did he want them to kill each other that much? Ning Shu felt that he didn't want them to kill each other. He wanted to step on everyone's principles and bottom line step by step. In order to survive, for 10 million, people could do unimaginable things. He wanted to threaten her with Su Xian's mother. Now, Ning Shu had no way to contact Su Xian's mother. She was isolated from the world. Ning Shu's heart was full of compromise for one thing, so she had to compromise endlessly. Number 15, please consider carefully. The person on the other end of the walkie-talkie was polite and distant, but his words didn't sound so nice. He wanted her to kill someone. It was so simple. Ning Shu wanted to give the camera a middle finger, but when she thought of the client's mother, her weakness was still in the other party's hands. There was no benefit in angering the other party. Ning Shu gave the middle finger countless times in her heart. Ning Shu found a place to sit down and began to collect dew. She poured the dew on the leaves into her mouth. In the morning, the dew on the leaves dripped on her body, and it was very uncomfortable. Life in the jungle was really tough. Clothes were wet and dry, soaked in sweat repeatedly, and all kinds of dirt were on them. Ning Shu didn't even dare to pull open her collar and lower her head to smell what she smelled like. It was too fucking perverted. It was only the 8th day, not even half a month. Ning Shu was quite conflicted. She really didn't know what to do. Ning Shu couldn't kill someone who had nothing to do with her. But what if the other party really dealt with the client's mother? Fuck, was she going to fail the first super mission? What the fuck? There were so many choices in life. Ning Shu felt that she had difficulty choosing, and now she was being forced out. Ning Shu was fighting in her heart. Should she destroy her mission for an unrelated person, or should she not let an unrelated person get involved in her mission and die with her mission? But if she was erased too many times, she would also be erased when the time came. Fuck, 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 fuck. Ning Shu, fuck. He hated this kind of crazy situation the most. Ning Shu laughed sinisterly and simply killed all the other contestants. Having a conscience was the most annoying thing. However, the client was bitten to death by a snake. If he was killed by a human, Ning Shu could naturally kill him without batting an eyelid. Therefore, no one else on the island had harmed Su Xian, or perhaps they didn't have the time to harm her. Ning Shu still couldn't figure out what the person behind this was trying to do. Did he have nothing better to do? Why would SR Group sponsor such a crazy program? Ning Shu felt that he could sit there for a month. Number 15, have you thought it through? The walkie-talkie sounded. Ning Shu moved his lips and silently said, "Fuck you. If I don't move, what can you do to me?" He wondered if there was a world source on this island. After all, it was near the sea and there was water. If he failed this mission, he had to at least earn some money back. The weather on the island was unpredictable, and suddenly it began to rain heavily. The wind blew, the waves surged, and thunder crackled as if it was exploding next to his ears. Ning Shu raised his head and opened his mouth to drink the rainwater. He picked up the soap from the ground, washed his head, and rubbed the dust off his body. He didn't have a container to hold water. Ning Shu could only open his mouth and drink the rainwater until he was full. Ning Shu's heart refused to be tied up on this isolated island. If she knew the law of space, she might be able to teleport away and leave this island. However, this was theoretically feasible. It also depended on the suppression of the plane. The higher the level of the plane, the more serious the suppression. In a low-level plane, you might appear thousands of miles away in a flash, but in a high-level plane, you might only be able to appear 100 meters away. The storm came and went quickly. Ning Shu took a comfortable shower. He took a shower without taking off his clothes and rubbed his hands into his clothes. The clothes were wet and stuck to his body, and he slowly wore them to dry. The camera, which had experienced the storm, was still working. The camera was fearless even in the sea. Number 15. A voice came from the walkie-talkie again. He called number 15, but he didn't know what to say. Then the signal was cut off. What was wrong with him? Ning Shu held the walkie-talkie and curled his lips. Ning Shu found a termite nest, caught a termite, and put it in his mouth to chew. The way he ate was for others to see. Ning Shu was lucky enough to see a beehive. There must be honey in the beehive. Ning Shu felt that his mouth had been bland recently. If he could eat some natural and sweet honey, he would definitely be very happy. However, he saw thumb-sized wasps crawling on the surface of the beehive. Ning Shu chose to give up. How painful would it be if he was stung? Ning Shu took a dagger and carved a mark on the tree. Another day passed. Probably seeing that Ning Shu was useless, the person on the other side of the walkie-talkie chose to ignore him for the time being. Ning Shu walked around with a branch, hoping to find the world's origin. As long as he thought about how he was looking for the world's origin, Ning Shu felt that the days were not so difficult. There's no world's origin on this island, 2333 said. Ning Shu, fuck off. This feeling was like watching a deduction show that told her who the murderer was from the beginning. Go to hell with the spoiler party. There's something I want to say right now. She couldn't even deceive herself. Knowing that there was no world's origin, Ning Shu was too lazy to run all over the island. He sat on the ground for a long time without moving. If poisonous scorpions crawled in front of her, Ning Shu would drag off his dirty shoes and slap the poisonous insects to death. His decadent life didn't need to be explained. Ning Shu had been cultivating and had martial arts. If people wanted to bully her, they would probably hit their heads full of bumps. She didn't take the initiative to harm these people, but these people couldn't hurt her. If they came to get 10 million, then don't blame her for being rude. The next day, Ning Shu first drank dew and carved a mark on the tree with a dagger. She stayed motionless for another day. There were 21 days left. It wouldn't be bad to stay like this for a month, and then leave the island. What Ning Shu was most worried about was that they might all be wiped out. It turned out that Ning Shu might have underestimated the bad taste of people who played games. Ning Shu didn't move in one place, but the mountain didn't move and the water turned. A man and Ning Shu met. This man was also in a sorry state. The bottom of his suit pants were torn, his shirt was dirty, and he was holding a suit jacket in his hand. He came to participate in a survival program and wore a suit. It was so formal. The lawyer saw Ning Shu and looked vigilant. He slowly approached and looked around. Are you alone? Chapter 1539. Ning Shu said without raising her head, "It's just me." The lawyer sighed and sat on the stone. It wasn't easy for me to escape from the hands of a climber. Ning Shu blinked and asked, "Someone wanted to kill you?" The lawyer nodded. He wanted to eliminate his competitors, so he wanted to kill me. Ning Shu lowered her eyes. The climber might have received an order to kill the lawyer. This was treating her like a puppet and playing with her in the palm of his hand. Previously, Ning Shu didn't listen to the order to kill the housewife, Wu Wan. After that, he didn't give her any orders. Ning Shu glanced at the lawyer who was not far away from her. The lawyer might have come to her with a mission. Ning Shu suddenly became a little interested. She guessed what the lawyer's order was. A man and a woman. Other than sex, Ning Shu couldn't think of any other way to abuse her. The lawyer might have received an order to rape and kill her. Ning Shu's mind was full of thoughts. She asked expressionlessly, "Have you met anyone else?" The lawyer shook his head. "Other than the climber, there's also you. The island is so big. It's not easy to meet someone else." The island was so big. It wasn't easy to meet someone else. She might have been led here. It was like encountering an NPC in a game and issuing a mission. They were living people, so they had to follow the instructions of the mission. The more Ning Shu thought about it, the more she felt that this program was full of evil intentions. Ning Shu asked, "You're a lawyer. You should be able to see that there's something fishy about this, right? The contract signed at the beginning was simply an unfair contract. As a lawyer, how could this man not see it?" The lawyer spread out his hands. "I'm also helpless. The organizer didn't want to take responsibility, so they made such a contract in advance." Ning Shu remembered that there was a law that if it was an unfair contract, it would be biased and the contract would be like waste paper. However, this law was also a piece of nonsense. Unfair treaties could be found everywhere. Since you already know that it's a tyrannical treaty, why do you still want to participate? The client was a university student. In the end, he couldn't compare to people who were struggling in society. The lawyer said helplessly, "So what if I know? As a lawyer, I've seen too much darkness. This is just a tyrannical treaty. If I can get 10 million, I can open a law firm." Ning Shu observed the lawyer. His right hand was fumbling with the buttons on his shirt. He had been fumbling with the buttons since he sat down. This should be his little habit. No matter what the other party's goal was, Ning Shu would just wait and see. Ning Shu didn't think that this lawyer was her opponent. Ning Shu leaned against the tree trunk and stared at the centipede that was as long and thick as a chopstick. So many legs. The atmosphere was quiet as the lawyer approached Ning Shu with his jacket. Ning Shu looked at her, and the lawyer handed the jacket to Ning Shu. "Sit on my jacket. There are many poisonous insects in the jungle." The lawyer also sat down close to Ning Shu. There was a pungent smell on his body, mixed with the smell of blood. The smell of blood was faintly discernible. Ning Shu used her mental power to scan the lawyer's clothes and found that there were bloodstains on his pants. Because the pants were black, the bloodstains weren't obvious. If it weren't for Ning Shu's sharp nose, she wouldn't have been able to smell it. The one who died was a climber, not a lawyer. Anyway, it was a lawyer who survived. The lawyer took out a few fruits from his trouser bag, which looked a bit like dates. "These are edible. I've always relied on these things to satisfy my hunger. Have one." Ning Shu refused directly. "I only eat termites." "Lawyer," the lawyer nibbled on the fruit. Ning Shu propped up her chin and used her mental power to observe the person next to her. Lawyers should be considered a relatively glamorous profession, but they still couldn't resist the temptation of money. Maybe, like a housewife, he would take out a dagger and kill her. Ning Shu and the lawyer sat together in silence. The lawyer felt that the atmosphere was too awkward, so he told Ning Shu about the case he took over. To be honest, Ning Shu had no interest in this. She was also someone who had been a lawyer. The lawyer suddenly changed the topic and Ning Shu asked, "Do you want to go back alive?" Although it was dark now, under the probing of Ning Shu's mental power, nothing could be hidden. Ning Shu saw that in the darkness, the lawyer's lips curled up, like a wolf looking at a rabbit. Ning Shu remained calm and asked back, "Of course I want to leave. Don't you want to leave alive?" The lawyer quietly moved closer to Ning Shu. Ning Shu could even feel the air coming out of his mouth. "Fuck, you haven't brushed your teeth for 10 days. If we can survive, we can only do as the walkie-talkie said." The lawyer's voice was so low that only Ning Shu could hear it. Ning Shu asked with an indifferent face, "Then what do you want to do? What's your mission?" My mission is to rape you, the lawyer said in a low voice. I don't want to hurt you, but if I don't do it, our lives will be ruined. Everyone here had weaknesses and pain points. I deliberately chose to confess to you in the dark. I want to cause as little harm to you as possible. You can just treat it as a love affair. When the time comes, you can struggle a little more. Ning Shu was speechless. Did he think that if he chose to do it at night, these cameras wouldn't be able to film? That was too simple. To rape someone, he had to find so many reasons. The brutality of murder, the ugliness of lust, this was really like the Garden of Eden. The ugliest side of human nature was released. He was obviously a lawyer, but first he killed someone, and then he raped a woman, completely trampling on the law in his mind. What kind of weakness did they have on this lawyer? The lawyer reached out and groped Ning Shu's body, and even let out a disgusting laugh. He did it on purpose. Ha, this is your mission. Why should I be wronged? Ning Shu stood up, grabbed a branch on the ground, and hit the lawyer. The lawyer wailed in pain and suppressed his voice. What are you doing? Did we talk? Put on a show. Ning Shu curled his lips. Okay, then you can be more tragic. Ning Shu used the branch that she was using to walk and hit him repeatedly on his body. The lawyer jumped in pain and angrily grabbed the branch. His face was trembling and his eyes were fierce. He looked like he really wanted to rape Ning Shu. Ning Shu kicked the lawyer's little brother. The lawyer wailed in pain and covered his injured little brother. Ning Shu used his crutches and turned to limp away. With his mental strength, Ning Shu knew if there was anything dangerous around. Therefore, Ning Shu didn't encounter anything dangerous in the dark. After walking for about 2 to 3 hours, Ning Shu stopped. Chapter 1540. Ning Shu sat down and looked up at the sky, occasionally seeing the stars in the sky through the gaps in the leaves. Ning Shu was even more certain of her previous thoughts. They might not be able to leave this isolated island alive. All signs showed that they were like playthings. Who was controlling them? The people who made the show. What was the point? Who would do something that was unquestionable? Ning Shu wanted to see what these people wanted to do. Ning Shu even felt that this was a rich man's game. The SR Group sponsored the show and even bought the desolate island. Ning Shu released more spiritual power and the range of his detection increased. As a result, not far away, he found a body. This body was naked, and it was a female body. The most terrifying thing was that a pair of breasts had been cut off. Her eyes were wide open as she looked at the sky. It was the housewife. After Wu Wan parted with her, she was killed. And the obvious female parts were cut off. Everyone had a dagger in their hands. Ning Shu had thought that it was used for self-defense, but now it seemed that it was used to kill people. Who killed Wu Wan? Ning Shu focused his spiritual power on Wu Wan's 2 breasts. The cut flesh was very smooth and there were no messy cuts. It was enough to understand the human body. The cut places were really 2 lumps on the chest, leaving 2 round bloody holes. It seemed that the murderer's hands were not trembling. If it was an ordinary person, they would have cut it off with a scratch, and the flesh would have been cut in a mess. Therefore, Ning Shu concluded that this might have been done by the doctor. There was a doctor in the information. The lawyer, the doctor, all had blood on their hands. Wu Wan was dead, and her leukemia daughter would be in a very bad situation in the future. The father didn't care, and without a mother, leukemia was particularly easy to infect, and a cold could have serious consequences. A small cut on the skin could cause the person to bleed to death. Ning Shu didn't know what to say. Ning Shu didn't plan to get close to the body. If she was caught on camera, she wouldn't be able to explain herself. Ning Shu's heart flashed, and he quickly walked back with the branches. It was very easy to get lost in the jungle. In addition, it was dark, so Ning Shu had no way of finding his way back. In addition, Ning Shu was quite far away, so it would be a little difficult for him to go back and find a lawyer. Ning Shu had a vague feeling that anyone who came into contact with her would eventually die. The housewife who had tried to kill her had her chest gouged out. If the lawyer died, some of Ning Shu's ideas might be valid. There were some people who could do whatever they wanted. If her existence wasn't accused, the final outcome would be even more tragic than the people who had died. The jungle was so dense that Ning Shu couldn't even raise his head to look at the stars in the sky, let alone identify the direction. Her every move was under the watchful eyes of others. This feeling was really unpleasant. Ning Shu walked for nearly 4 hours, and his spiritual power touched a corpse. Ning Shu stopped and pretended to be tired as he sat on the ground to cultivate. 10 meters away from her, there was a corpse. It was the lawyer. The lawyer was dead. Ning Shu lowered her head, and her hair hung down, covering her face. Ning Shu's lips twitched. He couldn't figure out what she was doing now. Was she the boss? Was she left for last? Ning Shu released his spiritual power to observe the lawyer's body. It had rained yesterday, and the ground was a little muddy. The footprints were messy, and some moss plants were trampled into a mess. The lawyer's throat had been cut, and there were wounds on his hands. Obviously, he had blocked the knife with his hands. Ning Shu guessed that the person who killed the lawyer should be a very strong person who had pressed the lawyer under his body. Because the lawyer was lying on the ground, his legs kept kicking, and there was a lot of mud on the heels of his shoes. Ning Shu first thought of the gangster with the left green dragon, the right white dragon, and the right tiger engraved on him. This gangster was quite good at scaring people. His muscles were even stronger than those of a fitness trainer. He had tattoos on his body, looked fierce, and chewed gum. The client was quite afraid of him. But of course, it could be other men besides gangsters. Ning Shu continued to walk in another direction, and the route she took was more special. One moment she was in an S shape, the next she was in a B shape. It wouldn't be easy to send someone to her. Maybe she would turn just as they were about to meet. Ning Shu suspected that they had something on them that could let the people playing the game clearly know everyone's existence. Ning Shu even suspected that she wasn't a human, but an NPC in a game. Otherwise, why could the person controlling all of this be so cold and calm, and kill people without hesitation? Ning Shu limped and counted with her fingers. As far as she knew, 3 people had died. The climber was killed by the lawyer, and then the lawyer died. The housewife also died. Ning Shu was only in this mountain, and didn't know that there were people who had died without her knowledge. Ning Shu carved marks on the trees she passed by. For the past 3 days, Ning Shu had been wandering around the island. As she walked, she suddenly changed directions without a goal. Number 15. The walkie-talkie, which had been silent for a long time, finally spoke again. Someone is on the beach 300 meters away from here, trying to escape. Please stop her. An emotionless voice came from the walkie-talkie. If this person dives into the sea and escapes, this game will be over, and the 10 million will be cancelled. Ning Shu leaned on the branch and walked straight ahead. Sure enough, she reached the beach. It was so comfortable to step on the sand that Ning Shu really wanted to lie down. A person was weaving something on the beach. She was using vines as thick as a thumb, trying to weave a boat that could carry her weight. It was a woman with dark skin, but she was filled with a youthful and lively aura. She shouldn't be old. Ning Shu walked over, and the dark-skinned girl immediately jumped up, holding the vines in her hands. Don't come over, I won't be polite to you. Ning Shu stopped and asked, this vine can't float in the water, right? I'm looking for dry vines, the girl said, then looked at Ning Shu warily. Are you here to stop me? Ning Shu spread his hands and said, why should I stop you? But have you thought about it? The sea is vast and boundless. Are you going to rely on this to swim back? What if you encounter a storm? Although the girl wasn't very tall, her limbs were very long. According to the information, she was the daughter of a fisherman. She was very good at swimming, but it would be difficult to swim back. Moreover, there were many dangerous species in the sea. Poisonous sea snakes, electric eels, sharks. The girl would most likely die if she went out to sea like this. Chapter 1541. Ning Shu looked at the girl's boat woven with dry vines. Although it's called a boat, it's more like a straw mat. How can this kind of boat carry people? Ning Shu turned his eyes and asked the dark-skinned girl, "It's a bit dangerous for you to go to sea with this." Ning Shu wanted to go with this girl. If he stayed here, he wouldn't be able to take the initiative. Ning Shu was very worried about the client's mother. The client's mother was lying in the hospital. Was she really kicked out by the hospital? My name is Su Xian. My task here is to persuade you not to leave. Ning Shu said straightforwardly. No, I want to leave here. I don't want to stay in this place. I'm scared. The girl's dark skin shined under the sun. She looked terrified, stepped back, and looked at Ning Shu with vigilance and panic. Are you going to kill me? You must be here to kill me. Everyone likes to kill each other. I'm scared. This little girl's ability grew up by the sea. Her participation in this program was purely an accident. She saw on TV that the TV station was recruiting people, and there was a 10 million bonus. Plus, the place of the program was pirates. The little girl felt that she had an advantage. So she came to participate. She should be the youngest among the 20 people. She probably saw a dead person and was afraid to run away. Ning Shu shook his head. I won't kill you. On the contrary, I want to leave here with you. The little girl looked suspicious and said, but not long ago, someone told me on the walkie-talkie that if you stop me from leaving the island, you're here to kill me. Ning Shu, she really knows how to play. This is to let the two of them fight. Ning Shu said, I want to leave here more than you. So far, I have seen 2 dead people. If this drags on, everyone will die. We will also be killed by others. The little girl looked at Ning Shu with a tangled face. You really won't kill you? Ning Shu took the dagger from his waist and threw it into the sea. I've already thrown away the weapon to show my sincerity. You should believe me now. The little black girl breathed a sigh of relief. All right, I'll believe you for now. The little black girl was not very old, only about 16 years old. If it was someone else, they might not believe Ning Shu. Ning Shu walked over and asked, how do you make this up? I'll weave it. You go and find this kind of vine. I want dry and tough ones. I don't want wet ones. The little black girl held the vine in her hand. The vines had to be at least as thick as a finger. Actually, it was unrealistic to rely on this to go out to sea, but Ning Shu had other ideas. The game controller would definitely not let them leave. The other party's actions were beneficial to Ning Shu. I'm not afraid of you taking action, I'm only afraid of you not taking action. Ning Shu went to find the vines. He held the little black girl's dagger in his hand, which was used to cut the vines. Ning Shu searched for a long time and brought back a bundle of vines. As a result, he saw someone holding a dagger, step by step toward the little black girl. The little black girl fell to the ground and kept retreating. Her mouth begged in horror, let me go, I just want to leave here. Ning Shu walked over and stood in front of the little black girl. He looked at the man holding the dagger. Do you not feel ashamed to make a move on a little girl? The little black girl standing behind Ning Shu immediately stood up and hid behind Ning Shu. This man looked to be in his 40s, but there were some white hairs on his temples. He should be the oldest person in this team. I. The man's hand holding the dagger was trembling. His face was tangled and helpless. She can't go. If she goes, the game of survival is over. 10 million, I need 10 million. The man excitedly shouted, I didn't want to kill her. I just want her to give up the idea of running away. Ning Shu rolled his eyes. Holding a dagger, at first glance, he wanted to kill people. Using a dagger to threaten people. If you have a daughter, she should be the little black girl's age. How can you make a move on such a small child? No matter how helpless, illegally depriving innocent people of their lives is an unforgivable thing. Not to mention, the people on this island have no grudges. Do you really think it's easy to get 10 million? 10 million is just a bait, and it's an illusion. You can't eat it at all. Moreover, you have an illusion that if I do this kind of thing, I can get 10 million. Ning Shu pulled out a thick vine and pointed it at the man, get lost. If I see you again, I will teach you a lesson. Ning Shu pulled the vine to the ground, making the sand on the ground jump. The man sighed, you'd better not run away. You will implicate everyone. Besides, even if you want to escape, you can't. My daughter is older than her. She's the same age as you. The middle-aged man Ning Shu said, I came to this program for my daughter's dowry. Ning Shu. Your daughter wants a dowry of 10 million. Ning Shu looked at the man. From the cut and workmanship of the man's clothes, he didn't look like a rich person. Especially the wrinkles at the corners of his eyes, he looked like an ordinary laboring person. If he was really rich, there was no need for him to participate in this program. The man's expression was a little bitter. He said with a complicated expression, my daughter found a rich man. Maybe she was afraid that the other party would look down on her. She said that I am a businessman and the dowry is 10 million. She will get married soon. Ning Shu. If she could lie about this kind of thing, how could a person's family situation be hidden? She couldn't hide it for a lifetime. Could it be that the girl wanted to get married first and cook rice? She was a little naive. How unconfident was she? She didn't even dare to be true to herself. Don't run away. In a month, we will be able to leave this place. If you rely on this thing, you may lose your lives. The middle-aged man sighed and turned to leave. He stepped on the beach, one step deep and one step shallow. Ning Shu turned to the little black girl and said, okay, let's start weaving the boat. The little black girl touched her face and asked, am I really dark? Compared to your normal skin color, you are indeed a little darker. Ning Shu said. Ning Shu and the little black girl began to weave the vines, it's like weaving a straw mat. Then stack a few of them together and tie them up. It's similar to a bamboo raft. Ning Shu gave a thumbs up, you're really smart. If it was a child living in the city, they certainly wouldn't have such a hands-on ability. The little black girl was a little embarrassed, but her face was dark, so no one could see that she was blushing. Ning Shu learned from the little black girl. At first, it was a little slow, but then the speed became faster. The two people worked together to make several vines and straw mats, and then they overlapped a few of them together. Ning Shu found the vines and tied them together. The two people worked together to pull the boat into the water. Chapter 1542. The vine boat floated on the surface of the water and swayed with the waves. The little black girl carefully climbed onto the boat. The boat swayed and sank a little. Come up and try. The little black girl Ning Shu stretched out her hand. Ning Shu climbed up, and the boat sank a little, and the water came up. But fortunately, the boat was big enough, and the surface area was large enough, so it did not sink. The little black girl was very happy, she took the simple paddle and began to row the boat. Ning Shu sat on one side, and the little black girl sat on the other side, both of them rowing the boat. The boat slowly moved forward. Ning Shu put her hand in the water and released the power of the sun flame. A small dragon as thick as an arm swam to the bottom of the boat, arched the boat, and moved the boat forward. Ning Shu suddenly felt a lot more relaxed. This was the result of her cultivation in the past few days. Having a small fire dragon was enough. Besides, the power of the sun flame was originally the opposite of water. She didn't know how long this small fire dragon could last. Huh. The little black girl was a little surprised. She felt that rowing the boat was so laborious. I feel that the speed is a lot faster. The little black girl couldn't help but ask Ning Shu. She suspected that this was her illusion. She wanted to leave so much that she had such an illusion. Ning Shu said, I guess it's because of the current. Maybe. The little black girl squatted down and put her hand into the water to feel the speed and direction of the water. Don't put your hand into the sea. This is not a freshwater area. There are many dangerous species in the sea. Quickly pick it up. Ning Shu said. The little black girl didn't feel anything. As a person who dealt with water since childhood, she had some experience, but when she heard Ning Shu's words, she quickly took back her hand. The simple and crude boat sailed at a moderate speed, gradually leaving the island behind. Looking back at the island was a lot smaller. The little black girl breathed a sigh of relief. We finally escaped. Ning Shu hooked up the corner of his mouth and didn't speak. It was too early to say that they escaped. The night at sea was a bit cold, especially when their feet were soaked in the water. Even though it was summer, it was still unbearable. What made Ning Shu even more surprised was that she and the little black girl had escaped for a day, but the other party did not make a single move, nor did they come to intercept them. That island had already become a small black dot and was very far away. Why hadn't the other party made a move yet? He allowed them to leave. He still felt that they wouldn't survive in the sea. The little black girl put down the simple oar and said, let's not go at night. If we can't see at night, it will be dangerous. Ning Shu raised her head and looked at the sky. There was a half moon in the sky, but there were no stars. She couldn't even tell the direction. Ning Shu reached his hand into the water and retrieved the little fire dragon. After swimming for a day, little fire dragon had consumed a lot of energy and was much smaller than before. Ning Shu sat cross-legged on the ground. There was water under his buttocks. The water seeped in through the gaps between the vines. It felt like the lower half of his body was soaked in water. If he could really reach home like this, Ning Shu felt that his buttocks would be snow white. The little black girl was a little tired. She leaned on Ning Shu's body and said in a muffled voice, I'll take a nap first. I'll change with you later. Ning Shu nodded and began to cultivate. Cultivating on the sea was a bit slow. There was water all around, which weakened the power of the fire sun. Plus, it was night. However, no matter how little the power of the fire sun was, it was still endless. The spiritual energy of the modern world was really sad. The little black girl said that she wanted to change with Ning Shu, but she fell asleep on Ning Shu's thighs. During the 10 days on the island, everyone was tense and did not dare to be careless. Ning Shu was a little speechless. Was the little black girl not afraid of her sneak attack? Sleeping like a dead pig. Ning Shu had been cultivating until dawn. She patted the little black girl's face and said, it's time to get up. The little black girl woke up abruptly, looked around in a hurry, and then breathed a sigh of relief. She thought she was on an island. The little black girl was a little embarrassed. I should change. Ning Shu said, we don't have food or water. The little black girl said with a smile, what's wrong with that? I'll go down and catch a fish. Let's eat sashimi. The little black girl said and jumped off the boat. Ning Shu could not help but shake her head. The sea was too dangerous. Did she think it was a small ditch in her home? When Ning Shu shook her head, she saw a huge white ship coming towards her. Ning Shu stood up, and the boat under her feet shook twice. Ning Shu narrowed her eyes and looked at the ship coming towards them. The people on this ship were definitely enemies and not friends. The little black girl jumped up and threw a fish on the boat. The fish jumped. The little black girl wiped the water on her face and followed Ning Shu's gaze and saw a huge ship. She immediately shouted excitedly, over here, help." Ning Shu squatted down and pressed the little black girl into the water with her hand. The little black girl's voice came to an abrupt end. Ning Shu quietly waited for the ship to approach. It was simply a huge ship. The little black girl re-emerged, coughed twice, and quickly spat out the seawater in her mouth. Ning Shu asked, "What are you doing?" "Don't be noisy, that ship belongs to the SR group who sponsored this program," Ning Shu said. "Only the financial resources of the SR group can have such a big ship." The little black girl's face was full of black question marks. Apparently, she didn't understand what Ning Shu meant. The little black girl was actually a very simple child. She didn't understand the twists and turns of it. "Can't we ask for help?" the little black girl asked. She was hoping to save them. Ning Shu looked back and couldn't see the island. Surrounded by the endless sea, he couldn't tell the direction. When she and the little black girl escaped, these people didn't move. Only when they thought they had escaped did they appear. They were in the middle of nowhere. What could they do? They were still in the palm of someone's hand. The little black girl wanted to climb on the ship, but Ning Shu said, "Don't come up first. It may be dangerous later." "What danger can there be?" The little black girl was very confused. "You'd better let me go up. It's dangerous to stay in the water. I feel something touching my foot." The little black girl thought it should be a fish. If it was something dangerous, what should she do? Ning Shu was a little helpless and nodded, "Come up." The giant ship was getting closer and closer. Finally, it was in front of them. The waves of the giant ship almost overturned the vine boat under Ning Shu's feet. The little black girl and Ning Shu squatted on it, holding the vines under their feet tightly, so as not to capsize. The giant ship stopped, and someone on the ship spoke with a loudspeaker, "Tie the rope to your body and pull you up." 2 ropes were thrown down. Ning Shu looked up and saw someone pointing a gun at her and the little black girl. "This armed force," the little black girl Ning Shu asked, "should we go up? Do you see the gun?" Ning Shu raised her eyelids, "It will shoot a hole in you." Chapter 1543. Ning Shu took the rope and wrapped it around her waist a few times, tying it tightly. When the little black girl saw Ning Shu began to tie, she also picked up the rope and tied it around her body. He even asked somewhat unrealistically, "Does this count as saving us?" Ning Shu grinned, "How is that possible? There are still people on the island, can we ask the people on the ship to save them?" the little black girl Ning Shu asked. Ning Shu smiled, "You think too much." Ning Shu pulled the rope, indicating to the people on the ship that they have been tied and can pull. The people on the ship began to pull, the rope was very uncomfortable. This ship was bigger than Ning Shu imagined, it was almost 30 meters high. When they looked down, their small boat looked like a tattered handkerchief. Ning Shu and the little black girl were pulled up to the deck, there were many guns pointed at them. The little black girl has never seen such a scene, her body trembled with fear. Ning Shu untied the rope on his body and asked, "Am I going to see your master now?" The leader was a lean man, his sharp eyes stared at Ning Shu and finally said, "Follow me, don't let the miss wait for a long time." Ning Shu followed the leader and looked at the man in front of him. Although the man was thin, his muscles were strong, not the kind that was flashy. His explosive power was very strong. The little black girl's face was full of fear, she couldn't help but look around. Seeing such a luxurious ship, she couldn't move her eyes away. However, there were several guns pointing at her from behind. The little black girl suppressed her amazement. The lean man opened the door. Ning Shu and the little black girl said, "Are you ready?" "It seems that they still have to dress up before they can go see the Mississippi." Ning Shu walked into the room. The little black girl quickly followed. The lean man warned Ning Shu, "Don't touch the things in the room." Then he closed the door. The lean man looked at the water stains on the floor, dripping all the way. "Find someone to clean this place up. We can't let Miss see this," the skinny man said to the people holding the guns. "Yes." The lean man was guarding the door, waiting for Ning Shu and the little black girl to come out. "Wow, wow, I've never seen such a beautiful place." Ning Shu saw a row of clothes and went straight to the bathroom to take a shower. "Wait for me." In this kind of environment, the little black girl was at a loss and could only follow Ning Shu to find a sense of security. Ning Shu filled the bathtub with hot water, lay in it, and turned on the massage. It was so comfortable. It was a massaging bathtub. The little black girl did not know how to use the things in the bathroom. Seeing Ning Shu lying in the bathtub, she also squeezed in. Fortunately, the bathtub was big enough for 2 laps. "Big sister, do you think we've come to an incredible place?" The little black girl played with the bubbles. Ning Shu grinned and rubbed his tense and trembling muscles. Listening to the lean man talking about Miss, was she the one who planned all this? Looking at the lean man's action, he should know her and the little black girl. Knock, knock, there was a knock on the door. "Please hurry up. Come out in 5 minutes." Ning Shu came out of the bathroom and took a handkerchief to dry his body. From the row of clothes, he chose a pair of high-waisted trousers and a pair of flat-heeled shoes. It was a very simple and convenient outfit. The little black girl looked at so many beautiful clothes and did not know which one to choose. Looking at the beautiful dresses, she could not move her eyes away. Her eyes were full of desire. No girl would want to have a beautiful dress. Ning Shu picked a dress for her. "This color suits you." "Thank you, big sister." When the little black girl was ready, Ning Shu opened the door. The lean man glanced at Ning Shu and the little black girl. "You follow me." The lean man led the way. Ning Shu's footsteps were calm, even if there were people with guns behind him. The little black girl was a bit timid. It was the first time she wore such a beautiful dress. She did not know where to put her hands and feet. The lean man took Ning Shu and the little black girl to a door. This door was made of thick aluminum alloy. There was a fingerprint identification on the door. The lean man stood in front of the identification system in front of the door. "It matches the inventory information, please come in." The sound of the door was heard and the door opened. The lean man turned his head to Ning Shu and said, "Come in with me." The lean man pushed the door open and Ning Shu followed him in. As soon as he entered, Ning Shu saw a wall with many players. The players were playing the situation on the island clearly. Everyone was under his control. Everyone's position was marked very clearly, and there was also a number for each person. Those who were already dead were numbered with a large number. There were 2 people in this room, these 2 women. A short-haired woman was commanding the people on the island with a headset. The other woman had dense seaweed-like hair. She was sitting next to the short-haired woman. She looked very lazy. Just the side of her face was enough to make people's imagination run wild. Her high heels were hooked on her toes and swayed. She was a peerless and charming woman. "This big sister is so beautiful," the little black girl exclaimed. The little black girl was naturally talking about the woman with the seaweed-like curly hair. Hearing the little black girl's words, the charming woman turned her head. Ning Shu's eyes flashed with amazement. Her red lips were like flames. She was beautiful and exquisite. "Miss, the people are here." The lean man bowed his head and reported. The charming woman nodded and waved her hand. The lean man immediately went out. From the beginning to the end, the lean man bowed his head and did not dare to look at the young lady. When he went out, the lean man closed the door. Big sister is so beautiful. The little black girl swore that this was the most beautiful woman she had ever seen in her life. She was like a fairy. Ning Shu's mouth twitched and said, "What big sister, she grew a penis." Moreover, it was a big penis. Using his spiritual force, Ning Shu looked at people as if they were stripped naked. Looking a little deeper, Ning Shu could see her internal organs. You can't turn into a woman with fake breasts. Moreover, these breasts were attached to the skin. No wonder her chest was covered so tightly. The charming woman raised her eyebrows and looked at Ning Shu. "Who are you calling a man?" The charming man opened his mouth and asked. His voice was clearly a man's clear voice. The little black girl's chin fell to the ground. She looked at the woman in a daze. "You are wrong. I am a woman." The charming woman's voice turned into a woman's somewhat shrill voice. Her words were tactful and charming. The little black girl's face was sluggish. She had been fooled. The short-haired woman with the headset turned her head and looked at Ning Shu. This woman's expression was indifferent. Even her eyes were cold. "Little sister, this is the person you want to leave until the end. I have said before, people who are out of control must be dealt with first." The charming woman, "No," the man said. Chapter 1544. The short-haired woman and the charming man's eyebrows are very similar, they should be brother and sister. "Sister, I like to see people think they have succeeded, but in the end, they are sent to hell," the short-haired woman coldly said. "Naughty." The charming man poked the tip of her nose. Ning Shu was speechless. He felt like he saw an incestuous love. Ning Shu coughed, breaking the strange atmosphere between the brother and sister. The charming woman picked up the walkie-talkie. "Li Zhao, come in." With a ding sound, the door opened, and the lean man came in. The charming man said with a woman's voice, "Take this dark girl down to eat something." Presumably, after so many days on the island, she must be hungry. "By the way, send a meal to fill the stomach of this young lady. This young lady wants to have a good chat with this young lady." "Sister." The little black girl grabbed Ning Shu's hand. Ning Shu comforted her, "It's okay, go and eat something. Many people can't eat the things on this ship in their lifetime. It's a waste not to eat." "Then I'll go." "Sister, be careful. Even if the little black girl has a big heart, but seeing the things on the screen, she can guess a bit." But fortunately, she didn't say anything. Ning Shu nodded. The charming woman looked at Ning Shu, flirted with her hair, "You're so good to her, aren't you afraid that she will make a move on you?" Ning Shu lightly looked around, pulled a chair and sat down. "I'm tired, let's sit and talk. I want to ask you, you put me alone with you two siblings, aren't you afraid that I will make a move?" Ning Shu crossed his legs. "I know martial arts." The charming man smiled, his smile was like a flower, beautiful and dazzling to the eyes. Ning Shu looked away. A man like this, it made Ning Shu feel like a failure as a woman. "Laugh your head off." Ning Shu indifferently looked at the charming man and asked, "Are you a pervert? You're a man, but you pretend to be a woman. If you want to be a woman, you don't have to cut off your penis. Just put on real breasts." The charming man narrowed his eyes. "I thought you were disobedient before, but now it seems that the words you say are more unpleasant than the things you do." Ning Shu spread his hands and said, "I still like the sound of a woman's voice when you use your red lips. Otherwise, when I look at your face and listen to a man's voice, it will be very out of character. My name is Gong Rong, what about you?" Gong Rong seemed to be in a good mood. Gong Rong, a name that could be either male or female. Don't you know my name? You should know my 18 generations of ancestors. Ning Shu said indifferently as he looked at the situation on the screen. How many people are still alive? Ning Shu asked. Gong Rong smiled. Take a guess. Ning Shu smiled and gave him the middle finger in his heart. Are you crazy? Gong Rong actually nodded. I am sick. Crazy? No. Ning Shu changed the topic. How could he do such a thing? Why did you kill so many people? Gong Rong smiled and said, Miss, relax. My sister and I didn't kill anyone. Are those people ghosts? We didn't kill those people. Ning Shu thought, motherfucker, crazy, why did you create such a tragic survival game? You lied to everyone. Ning Shu said coldly. Gong Rong spread his hands. His fingers were slender and his nails were round and glossy. He even had nail polish on them. But when he thought that he was a man, Ning Shu felt a little disgusted. How can you say that we lied? The winner does get a prize of 10 million, but he can only enjoy it in prison because he killed everyone on the island just to get the 10 million. Ning Shu was speechless. What's the purpose? Ning Shu asked. You were the one who instigated people to kill. When did we instigate people? What evidence do you have? And we have evidence. These are all evidence. Gong Rong's jade-like finger pointed at the rows of screens and finally moved to Ning Shu's face. Originally, you were chosen as the final winner. Fu is still young, so there are bound to be loopholes in the arrangement. Gong Rong shook his head and said. The short-haired Gong Fu said, Sister, actually, it's not bad to escape punishment. Even if she really escapes, the people on the island are dead. These people are all killed by her. She will be a rat who can't see the light for the rest of her life. What's the difference between that and being in prison? Gong Rong touched Gong Fu's head. Fu, the management of SR Group is not so simple. If you don't feel confident, don't do anything. If there is a chance, then make the other party unable to turn the situation around. What did you learn from this exercise? Gong Rong asked. Everyone can't escape from greed. Money is a sharp weapon. Everyone has a weakness. Gong Fu said coldly, money is our weapon. Inheriting SR Group and strengthening it is to polish our weapon. We can control others, especially ignorant and greedy people. Gong Rong curled her red lips. But remember, a weapon will always be a weapon. Ning Shu was so shocked that he clapped his hands. She couldn't imagine the world of the rich. She couldn't imagine the education of the rich. She could make clouds and rain with a flip of her hand. This was just an exercise, a game with money as the bait. She wanted to use the money in her hands and the other party's weakness. Ning Shu was thinking that whether he left the island or not, the crime of murder would be put on her. She was so crazy. She would either be sentenced to life imprisonment, death, or a lifetime of escape. Damn it, I can't take the blame for so many things. She was indeed awesome. Gong Rong turned her head to look at Ning Shu. She sat opposite Ning Shu, propping up her chin. She pouted her red lips and asked, What do you think of my sister's command? Very good. Hit the snake where it hurts. Dig out the roots first. Your sister can be considered a ruthless person. Ning Shu said. Basically, no one could resist the word greed. Was Gong Rong not greedy? Was Gong Fu not greedy? They were so greedy that they wanted to control the whole world. Haha. I also think it's not bad. Then I can rest assured that SR Group will be handed over to Fu. Gong Rong's face was as white as snow. She was prettier than a woman. Ning Shu said lightly, Have you never thought that if you don't live, all the schemes and tricks are useless? If the two of you die, will SR Group fall apart because of this? Gong Rong smiled. Of course not. Ning Shu also smiled, but if the two of you die, there will be people who will be elated. On the screen, another number was marked with a big red cross. Gong Rong said casually, another one died. Ning Shu frowned. You siblings are really disgusting. It was like killing a chicken, so indifferent and natural. This person died at the hands of us siblings. No way. Gong Rong looked at her hand. It's very clean. Chapter 1545. Ning Shu felt that it would be easy for him to kill this pair of siblings. Gong Rong's sophistry was an eye-opener for Ning Shu. Do you think your hands are clean? Ning Shu asked. Are they not clean? Gong Rong asked. Gong Rong suddenly grabbed Ning Shu's hands and looked at them over and over again. Can you guarantee that your hands are clean? They are not clean. They had been stained with blood. She had saved and killed people along the way. How could they be clean? But Ning Shu had a clear conscience. Ning Shu pulled his hand out of Gong Rong's grasp. Ning Shu felt goosebumps all over his body. You're angry because you're incompetent. You came for the money, but you feel that you're innocent. SR Group's money doesn't come from nowhere. Moreover, the 10 million is real. It's for the only survivor. Ning Shu's face was cold. He tilted his head and looked at Gong Rong. Continue to brag. Did I drive a knife and let you participate in the show? Did I drive a knife and let you kill people? If you had a little bit of rationality and thought about it, you wouldn't have participated. One is willing to be beaten and the other is willing to be beaten. Ning Shu nodded. Yes, yes, yes. It's all our fault. You're innocent. You're all peerless white lotuses. Ning Shu looked at Gong Fu, who was wearing an earpiece, and asked, will she be the successor of SR Group? This drill is a test. Gong Rong nodded. It's time for me to retire. Ning Shu's eyes turned and asked again, is it true that you're sick? Gong Rong nodded. Of course it's true. What illness? Guess. I have cat disease. Ning Shu supported his chin and looked at Gong Rong's back. If the successor of SR Group died, it would be amazing. It would be amazing if Gong Rong, who had cat disease, could die. I remember that your mother needs a kidney transplant. She even found it and is ready for surgery. It was clearly a question, but Gong Rong's tone sounded like she was stating a fact. Ning Shu narrowed his eyes. This pair of brother and sister were really good at grasping the weaknesses of others. Ning Shu didn't deny or admit it. He just stared at Gong Rong. Is it a glorious thing for you to grab onto other people's weaknesses? Ning Shu asked incredulously. Ning Shu didn't dare to act rashly, and he didn't know what was going on with the client's mother. The contestants participated in this program because of their mothers. Their mother whom they depended on for survival. Ning Shu finally understood that the so-called survival program was just a cover that SR Group had let the TV station come up with. They were playing a real-life game. We are not on the same level. Our worldviews are different. For example, there are many audience members who like to watch bullfights. The bullfighter clearly knows that it's very dangerous and that he might be killed by the bull, but if he dies for money, can you blame the audience? Ning Shu said indifferently, don't talk to me about the world. I haven't even seen the world. When would she be able to successfully construct her world? In other words, you deserve it. Do you think you are innocent? We are cruel rich people. Every class has its privileges. Otherwise, why do people have to work so hard to climb up? The pursuit of fairness is something that only the weak of the lower class are obsessed with. Ning Shu looked at Gong Rong inexplicably, you are talking so much to me. Are you trying to change my worldview? Gong Rong spread out her hands, sorry, I talked a little too much. It's just that it's been a long time since I talked to someone like this. Ning Shu sneered in his heart. When he was about to stand up, he heard the sound of the door opening. The lean man, Li Zhao, pushed the dining cart in and pushed it in front of Ning Shu. He opened the lid and put a steak on the table. After the steak was served, another dessert was served. Ning Shu had learned how to make pastries. Looking at these pastries, they must have been made by a chef. The color was beautiful and the shape was exquisite. Eat. Gong Rong said to Ning Shu while supporting her chin. Ning Shu sniffed the steak. Did you poison it or is this the last dinner? Gong Rong's red lips opened slightly. How could it be? If it's the last dinner, I will definitely make something delicious for you. You should go eat too. Gong Rong said to her sister. Gong Fu took off her headset and walked over. Sister, you're not coming with me. Gong Fu glanced at Ning Shu. Don't tell me you want to accompany her. Go ahead. I think it's quite interesting to talk to her. Gong Rong said gently. Gong Fu glanced at Ning Shu again before turning to leave. Ning Shu pointed his finger at Gong Fu under the table and an invisible force entered Gong Fu's body. Gong Fu's body froze and her face turned ugly. She couldn't help but clutch her chest. She felt as if she had bumped into something invisible. After a spasm, the feeling disappeared. Gong Rong hurriedly stood up and walked to Gong Fu's side. She asked with concern, what's wrong? Gong Rong's concern for her sister was sincere. Ning Shu cut the steak. The steak tasted very good. Gong Fu shook her head. It's fine. Gong Rong said to Li Zhao, protect Miss well. Li Zhao bowed and sent Gong Fu out. She followed closely behind Li Zhao. Gong Rong sat in front of Ning Shu again. She looked at Ning Shu and said, I especially don't like you looking at me like I'm a murderous demon. Ning Shu shrugged, I don't. Different classes have different thoughts. Just like now, you're eating beef. Have you thought about what the cow is thinking? Aren't the resources that humans need to survive all taken from other species? The food chain doesn't only exist for different species. The food chain between humans also exists. Gong Rong propped up her chin and looked at Ning Shu. Is the beef delicious? Ning Shu put down his knife and fork. He had lost his appetite. Why are you talking so much to me? Ning Shu's face was cold. I want to change your rotten and naive thinking, Gong Rong said. Ning Shu became even colder. I thank you. Thank you to your whole family. You changed my worldview, and then? Ning Shu asked. Gong Rong was really bored out of her mind. Nothing. I think the world is very stupid and easy to incite. Gong Rong propped up her chin, very naive. Ning Shu picked up his fork and ate the dessert. The world is stupid. You're the smartest, ha ha ha, little girl, I don't like your tone. Gong Rong shook her head and said. Ning Shu rolled his eyes. Do you want me to kneel on the ground and kowtow 3 times and 9 times? Are the desserts delicious? Gong Rong asked. Ning Shu nodded. Not bad, not bad. With a ding, the door opened. There were more than 10 people wearing bulletproof vests and holding guns. Chapter 1546. Why did such an armed force suddenly rush in? Ning Shu stood up, his body tensed as he watched Gong Fu walk in. Gong Fu coldly said, Sister, when can you change your bad habit of talking non-stop? Gong Rong asked, finished eating so quickly? Sister, there's no need to talk so much with her. Capture her. Gong Fu lightly said. Don't try to resist. These guns are the latest models. They are very lethal and very fast. If you obediently submit, you'll still be alive. If you resist, you won't even be alive. Gong Fu coldly said. Sister, I don't like her. She doesn't have any self-awareness. Gong Fu coldly stared at Ning Shu. Probably because Ning Shu's attitude was too relaxed from the beginning to the end, it made Gong Fu's heart very unhappy. Ning Shu's expression was indifferent. Why are you capturing me? Of course it's to complete my arrangements and let you be the last person. You'll receive a reward of 10 million. Don't you need money to save your mother? This money is enough for the surgery. But even if your mother is saved, you'll have to go to jail. No, maybe you'll have to eat a bullet. Ning Shu rolled his eyes, making Gong Fu's expression even colder. The short-haired Gong Fu was cold and emotionless. Her eyes were like ice shards. Gong Fu waved her hand and a person shot at Ning Shu. Ning Shu's hand on the table barely avoided the bullet. Ning Shu exclaimed in her heart. The speed of the bullet was really too fast. If it wasn't for the help of her mental power, she wouldn't have been able to avoid it. The Gong family actually had such an advanced weapon. Who knew how many armed forces were on this ship? If they all fired at her, Ning Shu didn't think she could avoid it. Ning Shu placed one hand on the table and grabbed the steak knife. His body slid on the table and slid to Gong Rong's side. With lightning speed, he seized Gong Rong. Ning Shu grabbed Gong Rong's neck and laughed. Do you believe that I won't kill her? Brother. Sister, let go of my sister. Gong Fu's cold face cracked. Gong Rong burst into laughter and reached out to grab Ning Shu's hand that was around her neck. Gong Rong wanted to throw Ning Shu over her shoulder, but she found that Ning Shu was too strong. He was a man, but he couldn't pull the woman's hand away. Gong Rong's expression slowly turned serious. What do you want? Gong Fu coldly looked at Ning Shu and asked, You better let go of my sister. Otherwise, I cannot guarantee that you will be able to leave this place alive. Ning Shu placed the shiny knife on Gong Rong's neck and pierced it, causing blood to seep out. Even if I'm going to die, I'm going to drag your big brother down with me. No, big sister, who cares about him, we'll die together. Ning Shu felt that this scene was very familiar. She had fucking kidnapped someone again. He was afraid that she would end up in the same situation as before. This mission wouldn't fail, right? Prepare a yacht for me. Fill the yacht with oil and put the little black girl on it. Gong Fu's face was cold. Ning Shu expressionlessly used the knife to stab Gong Rong's neck. Go prepare the yacht. Gong Fu had no choice but to order the skinny man, Li Zhao. Li Zhao quickly bowed and went to do it. Ning Shu slowly moved towards the door. Gong Rong was taller than Ning Shu, so she could only bend her legs. It was very uncomfortable. Gong Rong opened her mouth and said, Little girl, can we discuss this? I can walk on my own. It's very uncomfortable for you to drag me along like this. Ning Shu chuckled in Gong Rong's ear, even if it's uncomfortable, you have to endure it. I'm being pointed at by a gun. I'm very scared. Gong Rong couldn't help but say, to be honest, we are so close, but I can't even feel your breasts. Fuck you. Ning Shu kicked Gong Rong's leg. If you talk nonsense again, I'll be scared and slit your neck. Ning Shu said indifferently, but, I touched your fake breasts. Gong Rong lowered her head and saw a hand on her chest. She asked, how does it feel? Fuck, the quality of your silicone is not good. Ning Shu said while dragging Gong Rong to the deck outside. Many black muzzles were pointed at Ning Shu. Fuck, there are so many guns. I'm a little scared. Ning Shu said, have you prepared the yacht that I asked you to? Are you scared? Gong Rong asked, I see that your heart is not beating and you're not breathing. I don't think you're scared at all. You're the dead person whose heart is not beating and breath is not breathing. If you let go of my sister, I'll let you go. Gong Fu coldly said, I'll give you one last chance. Ning Shu didn't believe a single punctuation mark. He rolled his eyes and said, how about I use you to exchange for your sister? Gong Rong immediately said, no, I'll be your hostage. Sister. Gong Fu's voice was urgent. The little black girl was also dragged out. Seeing such a confrontation scene, she was so scared that her black face turned white. Li Zhao came over and said, Miss, the yacht is ready. Ning Shu said, the yacht is full of oil. Is there food and water on it? Li Zhao nodded his head. Little black girl, you go to the yacht first, we'll leave here. Compared to the size of the ship, the yacht was much smaller. The little black girl hurriedly went up the ladder to the yacht. Ning Shu loudly said to the little black girl, you check if there is food and water on the yacht. The sea was vast, without food and water, it was easy to have an accident. There is. The little black girl cupped her hands in front of her mouth and shouted to Ning Shu. Ning Shu was a bit annoyed. She kidnapped Gong Rong, so she couldn't climb down the ladder. Ning Shu moved back and turned his head to look at the small yacht below. Fuck, I might as well jump down. Ning Shu moved to the edge of the deck and was about to fall down. Gong Fu immediately said, isn't the thing you want already prepared? Ning Shu smiled, bye-bye. Ning Shu grabbed Gong Rong's neck, his body leaned back and fell down from the ship. He accurately hit the small yacht. Ning Shu circulated his qi in his dantian to reduce the force of the fall, but his body was still numb. Gong Fu was so shocked that she hurriedly ran to the side of the deck. She looked down and shouted loudly, big brother, quickly start the boat. Ning Shu said to the little black girl. I don't know how to drive, I don't know how to drive a boat. The little black girl was so scared that she stammered. Actually, I know how to drive a boat. Gong Rong's heart was still entangled, I fell from 30 meters and fell into the small yacht, but I didn't die, even the cushion under me didn't die. The current situation was really unimaginable. Gong Rong pressed down on Ning Shu's body, she felt that her body was soft. Was this the reason why she didn't die? The question was, why didn't this woman die? Fuck. Chapter 1547. When Ning Shu heard that Gong Rong wanted to start the boat, he sneered. Don't think that she didn't see so many guns pointing at her. She still needed Gong Rong to be on top of her as a shield to block the bullets for her. Gong Rong was very puzzled, if you don't let me start the boat, how will the boat go? Young Master Gong, you don't need to worry. Ning Shu released a huge formless energy. The energy drilled into the water and sank to the bottom of the boat. Then, it pushed the small yacht away. We're moving. The little black girl said excitedly, but she was also smart. She did not stand up, but crawled in the cabin. Although it was called a small boat, it was really a small boat. It didn't even have a room. It was used for surfing and didn't even have a roof. What the hell? Gong Rong felt that he was dreaming. Otherwise, how could such a strange thing happen? No one was driving the boat, and the boat was running on its own. Moreover, it was running very fast. It was really like seeing a ghost. Ning Shu stretched out his hand and grabbed Gong Rong's beautiful long hair, pulling her head back. Gong Rong screamed in pain and was forced to raise her head. Get off my body. Ning Shu said coldly. Gong Rong looked thin, but he was quite heavy. It was probably because of his bones. Gong Rong was pulled by his hair and said in pain, let go first, I'll get up when you let go. Ning Shu let go of Gong Rong's hair, and Gong Rong got up from Ning Shu's body. Start the boat. Ning Shu used a knife to press against Gong Rong's waist. What the fuck? Gong Rong bared his teeth, be careful, my kidney is on the ground. Do you know that a man's most important place is this place? Ning Shu, exercise. Isn't a man's most important little brother? Without a kidney, my little brother can't stand up. Gong Rong flipped his hair and climbed to the front to start the boat. The little black girl was somewhat confused as she listened to Ning Shu and Gong Rong's words. She really didn't understand the meaning of their words. Gong Rong steered the boat. Ning Shu was behind him, pressing a small knife against his waist. The speed of the ship was very fast, and soon the ship behind it became a small black dot. Little girl, don't point the knife at me. If a wave hits and the boat jolts, the knife will stab into my body. Gong Rong said helplessly. Ning Shu chuckled. Actually, I really want to poke holes in your body and watch your blood flow out like a fountain. Gong Rong was silent for a moment and then said, good idea. Ning Shu was constantly paying attention to the way Gong Rong steered the boat, and then silently memorized it. Stop, Ning Shu said. Gong Rong didn't stop. Ning Shu stabbed the knife into his flesh. Stop. Gong Rong stopped and touched his waist with his hand. His hand was stained with blood. He said angrily, didn't I say not to stab my kidney? It doesn't matter if you have a kidney or not. Ning Shu sat in the driver's seat, patted his leg, and said to Gong Rong, sit on it. Gong Rong was a bit confused. Sit on your lap. Hurry up, sit on it. Because I'm worried about you. Only when you sit in front of me, you won't dare to do anything. Ning Shu was afraid that when he steered the boat, Gong Rong would counterattack or even jump into the sea. Then the bargaining chip in her hand would be gone. Gong Rong, men and women can't be separated clearly. What kind of man are you? If you want me to stab your throat with the knife, then stand still. Ning Shu held the table knife and was about to throw it over. Gong Rong was helpless and could only sit on Ning Shu's lap. You're so heavy. Ning Shu said in a deep voice. Ning Shu steered the boat and used the satellite navigation system to locate his position. Your legs are really uncomfortable. Gong Rong felt as if she was sitting on two bamboo sticks. It was really uncomfortable. I promise I won't cause trouble. Be obedient and be your hostage. Don't make me sit on your lap, okay? Gong Rong said. Ning Shu immediately said, then hurry up and get up. My legs are going to break because of you. Gong Rong stood up and stood beside Ning Shu. The wind blew her hair into a mess. Ning Shu's heart was in a mess. What was she going to do in the future? After kidnapping Gong Rong, Gong Fu would definitely not let the client's mother off. She had to return to land as soon as possible and go to the hospital to see the client. She had become a kidnapper now. If she didn't pull Gong Rong, she wouldn't even be able to get out of the boat. Gong Rong's face was hurting from the wind. She sat down and tidied her hair. Ning Shu glanced at her from the corner of his eyes. You look really pitiful. Gong Rong coldly said, little girl, I'm telling you. I'm only a hostage. Don't drool over my beauty. Ning Shu pulled the corner of his mouth and laughed. Who would drool over a perverted beauty? The weather was hot. The black girl took out bottles of pure water from the box and gave one to Ning Shu and another to Gong Rong. Drink it sparingly. I don't know when we can leave the sea. Ning Shu said. As a hostage, you can only drink one sip. Ning Shu snatched the bottle from Gong Rong's hand. Gong Rong didn't look like a hostage. Could it be that she didn't look fierce enough? Gong Rong should be scared to the point of turning pale. Ning Shu stretched out his leg and kicked Gong Rong. Gong Rong looked at Ning Shu from the corner of her eyes. What are you doing? Be honest. I'm very honest. Ning Shu, I beg you to be in fear and trepidation. Gong Rong was really not afraid of death. Ning Shu suddenly asked, do you not have long to live? Gong Rong looked at Ning Shu and raised her eyebrows. This action was full of heroic spirit. She asked, why do you think so? You said that you have a cat disease. You're training your sister to be the successor of SR Group. You're not that old now. If you don't have long to live, you won't be so anxious. Especially after kidnapping Gong Rong's actions were too calm. She didn't seem to be afraid at all. The more Ning Shu thought about it, the more he felt so. Fuck, kidnapping a dying person was useless. If this person died in her hands, she would be a kidnapper and a murderer. Gong Rong smiled, but it made Ning Shu's heart sink. How can a beauty like me die? Ning Shu released his spiritual power and scanned Gong Rong from head to toe, inside and out. He wanted to see what was wrong with Gong Rong. Ning Shu didn't see any obvious changes. He only felt that Gong Rong's internal organs were aging rapidly. They were supposed to be young and healthy, but the internal organs were like the internal organs of a person in their 50s or 60s. Ning Shu didn't say anything. It seemed that Gong Rong could still live for a while. The days at sea were very boring. Gong Rong was a little tired and lay on the chair at the back to sleep. Ning Shu asked the little black girl to keep an eye on her at all times. Ning Shu was worried about the client's mother. He even suspected that after the client arrived at the island, her mother was controlled. Chapter 1548. If the client's mother was really being controlled, then she would exchange Gong Rong for the client's mother. But when she thought about the Gong family's armed forces and the police's involvement, Ning Shu's heart was in turmoil. Ning Shu couldn't help but kick Gong Rong awake. Gong Rong opened her eyes and stared blankly at Ning Shu. Have we reached the shore? I have something to ask you. Ning Shu stepped on the stool and twirled the shiny table knife in his hand. Gong Rong stretched lazily and leaned to the side. She supported her head with her hand and asked lazily, "Ask away. Is my mother in your hands?" Ning Shu pinched the knife with 2 fingers and narrowed his eyes at Gong Rong's face. I don't know what to say when you're like this. Can you not point the knife at me? Gong Rong smacked her lips. I'm a little thirsty. Give me some water. Ning Shu's expression was cold. You only know how to drink water. What's the use of a useless person like you? Your mother is in our hands, but she was sent to a good hospital for treatment. After all, you're participating in the game. It's our duty to treat your family well. Ning Shu, she was really in their hands. But you kidnapped me. I don't know what your mother's condition is now. Gong Rong spread her hands without any sincerity. Ning Shu could figure it out even if he used his toes to think. The client's mother's uremia was very serious. If she stopped treatment, her life was uncertain. The client died on an isolated island. Did the Gong family really pay for the client's mother's surgery? Ning Shu looked at Gong Rong suspiciously. He didn't believe Gong Rong's words. In the end, only one person received 10 million, and once they received the money, they faced the threat of being imprisoned. Damn, so angry. Ning Shu stabbed Gong Rong's leg with the knife. Gong Rong, temperamental crazy woman, Ning Shu licked the bloody knife and stared at Gong Rong. Gong Rong's face was very pale, but she blinked. You're quite sexy like this. Ning Shu almost cut his own tongue. He couldn't be bothered with him and continued to sail. Without Ning Shu watching, Gong Rong immediately grimaced and covered her bleeding leg. As soon as Ning Shu turned around, Gong Rong immediately retracted her painful expression. She propped up her chin and smiled. What else do you want to ask? If anything happens to my mother, I'll kill you. You'd better hope that nothing happens to my mother. Gong Rong calmly replied, I have nothing to fear. You have a cat disease and are about to die, but what if your sister dies too? Ning Shu said with a smile. Gong Rong flipped her hair and pulled open her collar. If there's anything, just come at me. Don't look for my sister. Ning Shu looked at Gong Rong's exposed fake chest. It was quite realistic. Ning Shu squeezed out a chuckle from his throat. He reached out his hand and crushed Gong Rong's fake breasts. Next time, I'll crush your lower part. Ning Shu's gaze moved down and stopped between Gong Rong's legs. Gong Rong crossed her legs and calmly said, I like humorous people like you. Help me crush the other side. Then it'll be symmetrical. Gong Rong puffed out her chest. Ning Shu also smiled and directly gave Gong Rong a big slap. I don't mind helping you to slap the other side. That way, it'll be symmetrical. Thank you, but I don't need it. Gong Rong stuck out her tongue and licked the blood stain on the corner of her mouth. Ning Shu nodded. This was the way kidnappers and hostage should get along. Whenever he thought that his client's mother was in the hands of the Gong family, Ning Shu was very unhappy, very unhappy. After sailing on the sea for a few days, they finally reached the shore. We're here, we're here. The little black girl cheered. She shouted and then burst into tears. Finally, they managed to escape. God knows how scared she was in her heart. Ning Shu pulled the boat to the shore and pulled Gong Rong off the boat. This wasn't a very big bustling port. It was a small fishing village. Many people stared at Ning Shu's group of three. Ning Shu grabbed Gong Rong's hand. She didn't have any jewelry on her hand. Weren't they rich? Ning Shu pushed Gong Rong's hair aside to see if there were any valuable earrings on her ears. In the end, she didn't even have ear piercings. She couldn't pretend to be a woman at all. Ning Shu looked at Gong Rong indifferently. What do you have on you that's valuable? Gong Rong rolled her eyes and then said, I'm quite valuable, but no one here knows me. What a waste. Gong Rong, Ning Shu didn't believe that Gong Rong didn't have anything valuable on her. Ning Shu's hands moved up and down. He pulled open Gong Rong's clothes and found sewing marks on the inside. Ning Shu tore open her clothes and a black card fell out. Gong Rong looked up and said, if you use the black card to withdraw money, someone will know where I am soon. Ning Shu shrugged his shoulders, it doesn't matter. Ning Shu asked someone where the bank was and then took Gong Rong to the bank. Ning Shu inserted the black card into the card slot and turned to Gong Rong and said, enter the password. Are you sure? Gong Rong asked. The table knife in Ning Shu's hand spun quickly, reflecting a bright luster. Okay, how much? 20,000, Gong Rong entered the password and withdrew 20,000 yuan. Ning Shu gave 10,000 yuan to the little black girl, you go quickly, don't stay with me, it's dangerous. Sister. Go quickly. The little black girl took the money and turned out of the bank. Gong Rong said, you can't even take care of yourself, and you still have the mind to care about others. I think you're going to die in my hands, why do you still worry about me? Ning Shu retorted. Ning Shu looked at Gong Rong's messy long hair and pulled her to a barber shop. Although it was called a barber shop, it was actually an open-air barber shop on the street. Master, just shave her hair for me, don't worry about the hairstyle. Ning Shu said to the barber. Ning Shu pressed Gong Rong on the bench and did not let her move. Little girl, it's a waste to shave her hair like this. Gong Rong's hair was slightly curly, black and very beautiful. It's okay. Ning Shu said with a smile. The barber was very straightforward. He straightened Gong Rong's hair and straightened it until it was flat. But Gong Rong's flat hair was still very handsome. The aunties and little girls passing by all looked at Gong Rong's face. Ning Shu also asked the barber to shave his hair short and make it look like a boy. After that, Ning Shu took Gong Rong to the clothing store and picked out men's clothes. Gong Rong was dressed in men's clothes, which was a simple t-shirt and jeans. But Gong Rong looked very handsome. Sure enough, she looked like a man and a woman. Ning Shu also put on men's clothes. Since they withdrew the money, the Gong family could find this place according to the black card. They had to leave quickly and go back to find the client's mother. Gong Rong was still looking at herself in the mirror, touching her flat hair. It's really hard to give up on one's natural beauty. Ning Shu pulled Gong Rong away and went to the station to buy tickets. Chapter 1549. They were still a few days away from the city, so Ning Shu planned to take the bus. Ning Shu bought 2 tickets from a scalper and got on the bus with Gong Rong. Ning Shu found a seat at the back and pushed Gong Rong to the window. Ning Shu sat next to Gong Rong and blocked his way. If Gong Rong wanted to escape, he would have to jump out of the window. Gong Rong's expression was a little bitter. He stood and refused to sit down. Ning Shu said, "Sit down." Gong Rong shook his head. "No, it's a little dirty." Gong Rong was a young master. His food, clothing, housing, and transportation were all exquisite. He had never sat in such a car before. The environment in the bus was very bad. There were snack bags on the ground, spit, chewing gum, and something that looked like urine. It was probably the adults who peed on the children. Gong Rong was not a clean freak, but he really couldn't sit in such a dirty environment. There were men and women, young and old, and all kinds of bags on the bus. There were all kinds of smells mixed together. Gong Rong felt that he smelled stinky feet and the smell of sea fish. This, he would rather walk. Ning Shu pressed down on Gong Rong's shoulders and directly pushed him to sit down. Gong Rong's expression changed. It was as if he had a heart attack. The bus was not full yet. They had to wait until it was full before they could start driving. Ning Shu saw that Gong Rong was drinking water and said, "Don't drink so much. When we start driving later, you can hold it in if you can't go to the toilet." Gong Rong silently twisted the bottle cap, opened the window, and breathed heavily. He felt like he was going to suffocate. At this moment, 2 uniformed police officers got on the bus. Ning Shu's expression did not change, but his heart skipped a beat. Ning Shu did not expect the police to be so fast. Previously, they had used Gong Rong's black card to withdraw money. It seemed that the police had found out where they were. The police stared at Ning Shu and Gong Rong. Gong Rong leaned her head on Ning Shu's shoulder and said to the policeman with a coquettish voice, "What are you looking at? Haven't you seen true love before?" As soon as Gong Rong said this, everyone in the car stared at him with strange expressions. Ning Shu's expression was calm. He stretched out his hand and patted Gong Rong's face. Nodding his head, he said in a low and masculine voice, "It's true love." The police officers were speechless. Ning Shu was also speechless in her heart. She didn't even understand if she and Gong Rong were gay or a concubine. The 2 policemen looked at Ning Shu and Gong Rong for a while. Gong Rong's appearance was really outstanding. However, it didn't match the information given by the higher-ups. When the 2 policemen got out of the car, Ning Shu's hanging heart slowly relaxed. Ning Shu moved closer to Gong Rong's ear and whispered coldly, "Behave yourself and don't attract attention." Gong Rong raised her small fist and punched Ning Shu in the chest. "My face attracts attention even if I don't talk." Ning Shu directly gave Gong Rong a big slap. "Stop being coquettish. If you continue to flirt, I won't be polite to you." Ning Shu saw that everyone on the bus was staring at him and said rudely, "What are you looking at? Haven't you seen true love before?" The audience, the rich circle is really messy. Gong Rong licked the blood stains at the corner of her mouth. "You really hate my face. You're jealous of me." Ning Shu nodded. "Very jealous." Gong Rong rippled. "You're so bad." Ning Shu really wanted to slap the other side of his face. The bus slowly started and drove out of the bus station. Ning Shu's hanging heart slowly relaxed. Gong Rong seemed to be very tired. She leaned her head on Ning Shu's shoulder and fell asleep. Ning Shu directly pushed her head away. Gong Rong turned her head and leaned against the window, falling asleep. Ning Shu also closed his eyes slightly. Recently, his body had been exhausted and he basically didn't have a good sleep. First, it was on the island. Then, they took a boat. However, they still couldn't escape from the Gong siblings. After that, it was a life of escape. Life was really a last resort. Ning Shu also didn't expect that he would become a kidnapper. If he hadn't kidnapped Gong Rong at that time, the problem was that he wouldn't have been able to escape. The Gong siblings were both vicious and merciless people. How could they be a saint to be able to inherit such a big business like SR Group? Although Gong Rong kept acting coquettishly, Ning Shu was always vigilant. Ning Shu originally thought that they would arrive at their destination smoothly. However, as soon as they arrived at the toll station, someone checked. The police car stopped by the roadside. Ning Shu glanced at Gong Rong, who was sleeping like a dead pig and leaning her head on his shoulder. This guy was really powerful to be able to make so many people look for him. The police went up to check. They glanced at Gong Rong, who was sleeping soundly and drooling. They glanced at Ning Shu before getting out of the car. Ning Shu didn't feel relaxed at all. Although they escaped this time, what about the next time and the next time? Especially the closer they got to the city, the stronger the police force. Ning Shu didn't feel too good. Seeing Gong Rong sleeping soundly, he really wanted to give him a big slap. However, he still felt that it was better for him to sleep like this and not cause trouble. The checks along the way were getting more and more frequent. Ning Shu felt that the chances of being exposed were getting higher and higher. Gong Fu knew that her brother was a man and was very likely to dress up as a man. She fixed Gong Rong's hair and a portrait of Gong Rong came out. When they arrived at a bus stop, Ning Shu pulled Gong Rong out of the car. They couldn't take the bus with so many people anymore. After going back and forth, Gong Rong's face was a little pale and waxy yellow. Ning Shu spread out his hands and said, "I just wanted to use you to exchange for my mother. Who knew that your family would be so troublesome, so I can only torture you." Gong Rong was listless. He really didn't have the energy to say anything to Ning Shu. He was really weak. He wished that he could hang his whole body on Ning Shu's body. Ning Shu was very impatient with Gong Rong, but if Gong Rong really died, it would be useless no matter how much she said. This mission was bound to fail. Because a kidnapper, what future could he have? Ning Shu went to the small supermarket at the bus stop to buy some food for Gong Rong. Gong Rong didn't eat much and his appetite wasn't good. Ning Shu released his spiritual force and checked Gong Rong's physical condition. Gong Rong's internal organs seemed to have aged even more than before. Gong Rong was clearly a man in his 30s. Why was he so fragile on the inside? What kind of illness was this? Was he aging prematurely? But why was there no aging skin? Gong Rong ate less, probably because of poor digestion. What kind of illness was this? Ning Shu suddenly asked, "Were you the one who was managing the SR Group before?" Gong Rong looked sullen and nodded, "I was managing it. Fu will be managing it from now on." It seemed that Gong Rong knew that he wouldn't live long, so he abdicated his position to train his sister. Ning Shu, then does your sister know that you won't live long? Gong Rong glanced at Ning Shu, "What does this have to do with you?" It seemed that Gong Fu didn't know that her sister was sick. "Why do you say that I won't live long?" Gong Rong asked lightly. Chapter 1550. Gong Rong didn't remember telling this woman that she didn't have long to live. Gong Rong put down the bag of bread in her hand and looked at Ning Shu. "I'm 18 years old, how can I die?" Ning Shu spread his hands and said insincerely, "You can think whatever you want. You can't do anything with money. You can't even buy your life." Ning Shu liked to see people struggling, especially Gong Rong. Yes, just like your mother lying in the hospital. Because she doesn't have money, she can't even have surgery. Some people's lives can be bought with money, and some people's lives can't be bought with money. Gong Rong said indifferently. Ning Shu rolled her eyes at the sight of a sure hit attack. Just like my life, it can't be bought with money. Ning Shu, haha, you're still panting when I say you're fat. It's obviously an incurable disease. Ning Shu had no choice. He had to go through a lot of twists and turns to go back. Ning Shu planned to take an illegal car. It was fine if he was cheated of some money, but he could get there smoothly. This kind of illegal car had connections. It was better than taking a bus that had to be checked every time it passed a toll booth. Ning Shu didn't want to complicate things. The most important thing now was the client's mother. The driver of the illegal car was indeed very evil. He actually took Ning Shu a lot of detours and let Ning Shu lose nearly 20 red notes. Ning Shu cursed in his heart. But he still gave it. It wasn't her money anyway. When they arrived at the bustling city, Ning Shu took Gong Rong to a small hotel to stay. Gong Rong lay on the bed and sighed. Why don't you stay in a better hotel? That won't do. There are too many people here who know you. I don't want to be exposed. Ning Shu pulled a chair and sat opposite Gong Rong. Gong Rong, let's talk openly. My purpose is only for my mother. If my mother is alive, the Gong family will let me go. I won't hurt you. Gong Rong lowered her eyelids slightly, her long eyelashes covering her eyes. We don't trust each other. It's useless to say these things. Ning Shu, haha, I want to kill the hostage, don't stop me. Just as Gong Rong had said, Ning Shu did not trust the Gong family at all. When Gong Rong returned, wouldn't she chase after her relentlessly? She was alone with a patient. No matter how she looked at it, it was difficult for her. The current situation was in a deadlock. They couldn't send Gong Luo away, but they couldn't not send him away either. Furthermore, they couldn't let him die in her hands. Ning Shu really wanted to give Gong Rong a good beating. But when he saw that Gong Rong's beautiful face had lost all color, and she looked haggard and weak, he couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine. Ning Shu was really afraid that he would die from a single punch. Ning Shu changed the topic. Why are you cross-dressing? Gong Rong stretched. Take a guess. I'm going to take a shower. Gong Rong entered the bathroom, but soon stuck her head out with a pink soap in her hand. Gong Rong's expression was incredulous as she asked, I want to ask, is this soap full of essential pigments used for bathing? Ning Shu nodded. Have a good bath. Can you help me buy better bathing products? Gong Rong asked Ning Shu. Ning Shu shook his head. A hostage has to have the awareness and mindset of a hostage. Is it appropriate for you to ask for bathing products like this? It's appropriate, Gong Rong said matter-of-factly. Appropriate my ass. I'm not used to this. I might have an allergic reaction, Gong Rong said. What's the difference between this and sulfuric acid? Ning Shu squinted. Of course there's a difference. What difference? Once you splash sulfuric acid on it, it will rot. This won't rot. Gong Rong. Wash, if you don't want to wash, I'll help you wash. After you're clean, there's business to be done. Ning Shu's face was dark, and his heart was burning with anxiety. Now that he was back, he felt even more uneasy. The client hadn't even graduated from university, and there had been no news for so long. He didn't know if she could continue studying in university. But now, she couldn't even keep her life. Her life might be ruined. Because it was a small hotel, there were probably many couples. The room was very ambiguous, and the glass of the bathroom was hazy. Ning Shu stared straight at Gong Rong's enchanting body. She wiped her legs and arms, and washed the eggs. Ning Shu looked away indifferently. His eyes were burning. It's not done yet. How long are you going to wash? Ning Shu had never seen a man wash for so long. He probably even brushed his toes. Ning Shu felt that he lived rougher than a man. It'll be done soon. Ning Shu took the TV remote control and turned on the TV. The TV was broadcasting the news. It was about the kidnapping of the head of the SR group. They even posted photos, hoping that the masses of Chaoyang City could find the murderer. Then, Gong Rong's sister, Gong Fu, was ordered to take over the SR group. Gong Rong came out with steam all over her body. She looked at the news on the TV and said with a smile, Fu did well. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows and didn't say anything. Gong Fu did this to put psychological pressure on the kidnapper. If it was a kidnapper with an unstable mentality, it was very likely that he would kill the hostage out of anger and fear. Gong Rong even said that Gong Fu did well. She was fearless just because she didn't have long to live, right? He had to get rid of this hot potato, Gong Rong, as soon as possible. After Gong Rong finished showering, Ning Shu took her to inform the Gong family. When they arrived at a public phone, Ning Shu inserted money and asked Gong Rong, "What's your phone number?" Gong Rong looked down at Ning Shu's head. "You want to call my house? I have to save my mother. I'll use you in exchange. Don't talk nonsense. What's the phone number?" Gong Rong said a string of numbers, and Ning Shu dialed it. The person who answered the phone seemed to be a servant. Ning Shu directly said that he was looking for 2nd Mississippi. There was a ding on the other end of the phone. It seemed that the call had been transferred to Gong Fu's room. "Hello." Gong Fu's voice was cold and emotionless. Even through the phone line, Ning Shu felt that his ears were numb from the cold. Ning Shu coughed. "Yes, it's me. Do you remember me? Who are you?" Ning Shu was speechless. "Someone who plays with your brother. We even went on a 4-day cruise." Ning Shu said. "Su Xian, what did you do to my brother?" Ning Shu asked back, "What did you do to my mother?" Gong Fu sneered silently. "What do you think? If you dare to do anything to my mother, I. Ning Shu didn't say anything over the phone. He passed the phone to Gong Rong. "Speak properly." Ning Shu stared at Gong Rong fiercely. Gong Rong took the phone and called Fu softly. Her voice was so soft that Ning Shu shivered. "How disgusting." "I'm fine. Don't worry. Do whatever you want. I'm doing very well. I plan to travel around. You take good care of SR Group." Gong Rong said. Ning Shu nodded. "Well said." With that, she was no longer a kidnapper. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.